The elevator doors slid open to reveal a penthouse drenched in blood. Evelyn Hart stood frozen, her wedding ring still warm on her finger, married 6 hours ago to a man she barely knew, the mechanic husband who'd signed the contract without looking at her once. Now he stood in the center of his living room, 3 armed men unconscious at his feet, not a drop of sweat on his brow. "Close the door," Nathaniel said quietly, his daughter asleep in his arms. That's when Evelyn realized her contract marriage wasn't about money. It was about survival, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where this nightmare really started, 3 weeks before that blood-soaked elevator ride. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. You're going to want to stay until the end. 3 weeks earlier. The law office smelled like old leather and older money. Evelyn Hart sat in a chair that probably cost more than her entire year's rent, trying not to let her hands shake visibly. She'd worn her only professional outfit, a navy blazer with a small stain on the left sleeve she'd hidden by crossing her arms just so. The weight of 19 failed job applications sat in her stomach like stones. "Ms. Hart, do you understand what we're proposing?" The attorney, Gerald Whitmore, according to the brass nameplate that could double as a weapon, peered at her over reading glasses that definitely weren't from LensCrafters. Everything about this office screamed money in a language Evelyn was still learning to speak. "You want me to marry someone?" Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "For 2 years, in exchange for the position of Chief Operating Officer at Meridian Dynamics, with a clear path to CEO within 18 months. Whitmore's pen clicked against expensive paper. "Additionally, a signing bonus of $200,000 and full assumption of your mother's medical debts." Evelyn's throat tightened at the mention of her mother. Stage 4 lymphoma didn't care about dreams or ambitions. It just ate and ate until there was nothing left but bills. "Who is he?" She forced the question out. "The man you want me to marry." Whitmore exchanged a glance with his colleague, a sharp-faced woman named Victoria Chen who hadn't smiled once since Evelyn walked in. That look told her more than words could. Whatever answer was coming, she wouldn't like it. "His name is Nathaniel Cross," Whitmore said carefully. "He's private. Very private." "Is he dangerous?" "No." The answer came too quickly. Evelyn had grown up in the Bronx, in an apartment where you learned to hear the things people didn't say louder than what they did. That "no" was wrapped in about 17 layers of "but." "Then what is he?" Victoria spoke for the first time, her voice like cold water. "He's a mechanic. Works at an auto shop in Queens. Has a 4-year-old daughter. No criminal record. No social media presence. No complications. A mechanic. They were offering her a fortune to marry a mechanic who apparently lived off the grid like it was still 1987. "Why me?" Evelyn asked. "There have to be 1,000 women who'd—" "The arrangement requires someone outside the usual social circles," Whitmore interrupted. "Someone with ambition, but without connections to the families involved. Someone who needs this opportunity enough to take it seriously, but has enough spine not to be problematic. Someone desperate," Evelyn translated mentally. "Someone with no better options." She thought about her studio apartment with the radiator that clanked like a dying robot, about the hospital calling twice a day for payments she couldn't make, about the way her business degree from a state school got her exactly nowhere in interviews where everyone else had Ivy League credentials and last names that opened doors. What's the catch? She'd learned that nothing came free, especially not things that sounded too good to be true. "The marriage must appear legitimate," Victoria said. "You'll live together, attend events together when required. The child will be part of the household. After 2 years, you divorce quietly, you retain your position at Meridian, and everyone walks away satisfied." "And if I say no?" Whitmore smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Then we find someone else, and you go back to—" He glanced at the file in front of him. "Your current employment situation." Current employment situation. What a polite way to say unemployed and drowning. Evelyn looked at the contract on the table. 23 pages of legal language that might as well have been written in ancient Greek. But she'd learned to read between those lines, too. This wasn't an opportunity. It was a transaction. "I need to meet him first," she said. "That's not—" "I need to meet him first," Evelyn repeated. letting some of the Bronx creep into her voice. You want me to marry a stranger and live with his kid for 2 years? I see his face before I sign anything. Victoria's expression suggested she'd just gained a small measure of respect. Or maybe that was indigestion. Hard to tell with women who wore Chanel suits like armor. Tomorrow, Whitmore said finally. 2 p.m. We'll arrange a meeting. The auto shop occupied a corner lot in Long Island City, wedged between a bodega and a place that sold discount furniture. The sign read, Alvarez and Sons Automotive in faded letters, and the whole place smelled like motor oil and burnt coffee. Evelyn stood on the sidewalk, watching through the open garage door as a man worked under the hood of an ancient Toyota. Grease stained his forearms. His dark hair fell across his forehead as he leaned into the engine, entirely focused on whatever mechanical problem he was solving. This was her future husband, the man she'd share a home with for 2 years, the father of a child she'd have to somehow coexist with despite knowing nothing about kids except that they were small, loud, and expensive. He hadn't noticed her yet. Evelyn took the opportunity to study him. Tall, maybe 6'2". Lean build, but she could see muscle definition in his arms as he worked. Late 20s or early 30s, hard to tell. He moved with an odd kind of precision, each gesture deliberate and economical. Not the way most mechanics worked, all rough efficiency and shortcuts. This was something else. You gonna stand there all day, or you got business? The voice came from her left. A older man, maybe 60, with impressive mustaches and oil under his fingernails, stood wiping his hands on a red rag. I'm looking for Nathaniel Cross, Evelyn said. The mustached man, Alvarez presumably, jerked his head toward the Toyota. Nate, you got a visitor. The man under the hood straightened slowly. When he turned around, Evelyn felt something cold slide down her spine. His eyes were wrong. Not in color, they were a perfectly normal dark brown. Not in shape or size, but in the way they looked at her. Flat, assessing, the way you'd examine a car part to determine if it was worth keeping or should be thrown in the trash. Evelyn Hart? His voice was quiet, unremarkable. The kind of voice that disappeared in crowds. That's me. She stepped into the garage, trying to project confidence she didn't feel. I wanted to meet you before you sign away 2 years of your life for a corporate position and enough money to bury your mother's medical bills without drowning in debt yourself. Nathaniel picked up a rag, started wiping grease from his hands with methodical precision. They told you I'm a mechanic, that I have a daughter, that I need a wife for, what did they call it? Appearance purposes. Something like that. Did they tell you why? No. He nodded like this confirmed something. They wouldn't. That's not how these things work. Evelyn crossed her arms. And how do these things work, exactly? For the first time, something that might have been amusement flickered across his face. It was gone so fast she might have imagined it. You sign the contract, we get married at City Hall. You move into my apartment, we live separate lives under the same roof, show up together when required, and in 2 years, you get everything you were promised. He turned back to the Toyota like the conversation was over. It's a business arrangement, nothing more. You have a kid, Evelyn said. What happens to her in this business arrangement? Nathaniel's hand stilled on the engine. When he looked at her again, those flat eyes had changed. Something sharp and protective had crept in, the first real emotion she'd seen from him. Lily is not part of the arrangement, he said quietly. She's 4 years old. Her mother died when she was 18 months. She doesn't need someone coming in and out of her life pretending to care. So what am I supposed to be? A stranger who lives in her house? You're supposed to be exactly what you are, someone doing a job. I'll handle Lily. The way he said his daughter's name, soft, careful, like it was made of glass, told Evelyn more about Nathaniel Cross than any background check could. Whatever else he was, he loved his kid. That was real. I grew up without a father, Evelyn heard herself say. He left when I was 3. I spent my whole childhood watching my mother work herself to death trying to fill that gap. She met those dark eyes steadily. I won't be another adult who walks through that little girl's life like she's furniture. If I'm going to live there, I'm going to exist as a person, not a ghost. Nathaniel studied her for a long moment. Then he grabbed a jacket from a hook on the wall. Come on, he said. Where are we going? If you're going to marry me, you should probably meet my daughter first. The apartment wasn't what Evelyn expected. She'd imagined something small and cramped, maybe a two-bedroom in one of the less expensive neighborhoods. Instead, Nathaniel led her to a building in Astoria with actual security and an elevator that didn't smell like regret. The apartment itself was clean, painfully clean. Minimalist furniture, everything in its place. Not a dish in the sink or a newspaper on the counter. The only signs of life were the explosion of toys in one corner, building blocks, picture books, and what looked like an alarming number of stuffed elephants. "Lily has a thing for elephants," Nathaniel said, catching her looking. "Don't ask me why, she just does." A woman emerged from the hallway, Latina, middle-aged, with kind eyes and hands that suggested she'd spent a lifetime taking care of other people. "Nate, she's been asking for you all." The woman stopped when she saw Evelyn. "Oh, you didn't mention company." "Rosa, this is Evelyn Hart." "Evelyn, Rosa Delgado, she watches Lily during the day." Rosa's expression suggested she understood more than was being said. She glanced at Nathaniel with something that looked like concern, then back at Evelyn with open assessment. "It's nice to meet you," Evelyn said, feeling suddenly like she was being interviewed for a position she didn't know how to fill. "Daddy!" The voice was small and high-pitched and came from the hallway at maximum velocity. A tiny girl with dark curls and her father's eyes launched herself at Nathaniel's legs with the absolute confidence that he would catch her. He did, scooping her up in one smooth motion that spoke of practice. The transformation in his face was startling, all that flatness gone, replaced by something warm and utterly human. "Hey, baby girl. How was your day? We made paintings, and I built a castle. And Rosa said we could have mac and cheese for dinner if you said yes, so you have to say yes, okay?" "Mac and cheese it is." Nathaniel set her down gently. "Lily, this is Ms. Evelyn. Can you say hello?" The little girl turned to stare at Evelyn with the kind of unblinking intensity only children could manage. She was wearing a pink dress with paint stains and one sock. Somehow, she'd lost the other sock. Evelyn had no idea how kids lost single socks, but apparently it was a universal constant. "Hello," Lily said solemnly. "Do you like elephants?" Yes." Evelyn had no strong feelings about elephants one way or another, but this seemed like the right answer. "Good." Lily grabbed Evelyn's hand with sticky fingers. "Come see my castle. It has 4 towers and a dragon, but the dragon is nice. She just guards the princess." Before Evelyn could process what was happening, she was being dragged toward the explosion of toys in the corner. Nathaniel watched with an expression she couldn't read. The next 20 minutes passed in a blur of building blocks, elephant facts. Apparently they could recognize themselves in mirrors and mourned their dead, which was both fascinating and depressing, and a detailed explanation of why mac and cheese was the best food invented by humans. Lily was a lot. Energetic and curious and completely unfiltered in the way kids were before the world taught them to hide. She asked Evelyn approximately 700 questions, including why her hair was that color, genetics probably. If she had a dog, no. Why not, small apartment. And if she wanted to see her paint a picture of an elephant riding a motorcycle. "She likes you," Rosa said quietly. She'd appeared at Evelyn's elbow while Lily was searching for the right shade of gray paint. "She doesn't warm up to people usually." "Really?" Evelyn watched as Lily triumphantly held up a paint bottle. "She seems pretty friendly." "With kids, yes. With adults?" Rosa shook her head. "She's careful, like her father." There was weight in those words. Evelyn turned to find Nathaniel standing in the kitchen doorway, watching them. That flat expression was back in place, but she caught something underneath it now, something calculating. He was testing her, seeing how she'd react to his daughter, checking if she'd treat Lily like an inconvenience or an obstacle, or, worse, like a cute prop to manipulate her father. Well, 2 could play that game. "Lily," Evelyn said, "what if we paint 2 elephants? Then they can be friends." The little girl's face lit up like Christmas. "Yes! They can have a tea party and wear hats." By the time Nathaniel called them for dinner, they'd created a masterpiece featuring 4 elephants, 2 motorcycles, an improbable number of hats, and what might have been a spaceship or possibly a very abstract tree. Dinner was mac and cheese from a box, cut-up apples, and water in plastic cups with cartoon characters. Lily chattered about her day while Nathaniel cut her food into small pieces and reminded her to chew. Evelyn sat at the table in this clean, quiet apartment, eating budget pasta with a man she'd met twice, and his daughter who'd decided they were best friends now, and felt reality settling over her like a weight. This was going to be her life. These people, this space. For 2 years. Ms. Evelyn? Lily's voice cut through her thoughts. Are you going to be my new mommy? The temperature in the room dropped about 20 degrees. Rosa froze with her fork halfway to her mouth. Nathaniel's face went carefully blank in a way that suggested he was working very hard to keep it that way. Evelyn looked at the little girl, 4 years old, motherless, staring at her with hope and confusion and the kind of vulnerability that could break your heart if you let it. She could lie, make it simple. But something told her Lily deserved better than that. No, sweetie, Evelyn said gently. I'm not going to be your mommy. Your mommy, she's gone and nobody can replace her. But I might be your friend, if that's okay. Lily considered this with a seriousness that belonged on a much older face. Okay, she said finally. I like friends. Me too. Nathaniel's eyes met hers across the table. For just a second, that flat mask slipped, and she saw something like gratitude. Then it was gone, and he was just the mechanic again, wiping mac and cheese off his daughter's face and reminding her that bedtime was in 30 minutes. Matul. After Lily was asleep, a process that involved 3 stories, 2 glasses of water, and an extensive discussion about whether elephants dreamed, Nathaniel walked Evelyn to the door. Thank you, he said quietly, for what you said to her, about not replacing her mother. I wasn't going to lie to a 4-year-old. A lot of people would have. He leaned against the door frame, told her what she wanted to hear to make things easier. Yeah, well, I'm not a lot of people. Something that might have been a smile touched his mouth. No, you're not. They stood there for a moment in the kind of awkward silence that happens between strangers who are about to become something else. Not quite friends, not quite partners. Something with no good name. If we do this, Evelyn said, I need to know you're not going to make me regret it. I need to know you're safe? The word came out flat. I'm not going to hurt you, if that's what you're asking. That's not... Evelyn stopped, trying to find the right words. I've learned to trust my instincts about people. And my instincts say there's more to you than the mechanic thing. I don't know what, but something. Nathaniel's expression didn't change. Everyone has things they don't talk about. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have right now. Fair enough. She had things she didn't talk about either. The childhood that taught her to fight for every inch. The father who left and never looked back. The shame of needing this arrangement in the first place. I'll sign the contract, Evelyn said, but I'm not going to pretend Lily doesn't exist. If I'm living here, I'm part of her life, and you don't get to decide how much. Fine, and we establish boundaries, real ones. You get your space, I get mine. We're polite, professional, and we don't... I'm not interested in that, Nathaniel interrupted. If you're worried about, I'm not worried. Evelyn felt heat creep up her neck. I'm establishing parameters. This is a business arrangement. It stays that way. Agreed. Good. Good. They stared at each other. The elevator dinged somewhere down the hall. I'll see you at the courthouse Friday, Nathaniel said finally. 10 a.m. Whitmore has the details. Right, Friday. Evelyn turned to go, then stopped. Hey, your daughter. She's a good kid. I know. Yeah, I figured you did. She was halfway to the elevator when his voice followed her. Evelyn? She looked back. Nathaniel stood in the doorway, backlit by the apartment's warm light. And for a second he looked almost human, almost normal. Don't get too attached, he said quietly, to any of this. It's temporary. Don't worry, Evelyn replied. I remember the terms. But walking out into the night, heading back to her studio with the broken radiator and the stack of unpaid bills, Evelyn had the uncomfortable feeling that Nathaniel Cross wasn't the only one lying. She was lying to herself. Because some part of her, the part that grew up dreaming about stability and safety and homes that didn't feel like temporary shelters from the storm, had looked at that clean apartment and that sweet kid and that damaged man and whispered, this could be real. And that was the most dangerous thought of all. Mom. The wedding happened on a Friday morning in a courthouse that smelled like floor cleaner and bureaucracy. Evelyn wore a cream dress she'd bought on sale from TJ Maxx. Nathaniel wore dark slacks and a white button-down that looked like he'd ironed it himself. No flowers. No guests except the required witnesses, Whitmore and Victoria, who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. The judge was a tired-looking woman who'd clearly performed about 1,000 of these ceremonies and had stopped finding them romantic somewhere around marriage number 12. Do you, Nathaniel Cross, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. Flat, emotionless, like he was signing a car title. And do you, Evelyn Hart, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? Evelyn looked at the stranger standing across from her, the man who'd methodically wiped grease from his hands, who'd scooped up his daughter without thinking, who'd warned her not to get attached. I do. By the power vested in me by the state of New York, I now pronounce you husband and wife. No kiss. They'd agreed on that ahead of time. A handshake sealed the deal instead, businesslike and brief. Married. Evelyn was married to a man she'd known for a week, a mechanic with secrets in his eyes and a daughter who liked elephants. For 2 years, she'd live in his space, eat at his table, exist in the orbit of his life. And in exchange, she'd get everything she'd ever worked for. It should have felt like victory, like she'd finally caught a break in a life that had been systematically breaking her since childhood. Instead, it felt like she'd just signed something she couldn't unsign. Congratulations, Whitmore said, handing her a folder. The first payment will be in your account by Monday. Keys to the penthouse are inside. Penthouse? Evelyn stared at him. I thought the apartment in Astoria. That was temporary, Nathaniel said quietly. We're moving. Today. You didn't think to mention this? I'm mentioning it now. Evelyn wanted to argue, but Whitmore and Victoria were already leaving, their job done. The judge had moved on to the next couple, younger, happier, actually in love. She turned to her new husband. Where exactly are we moving? Manhattan, Upper East Side. That's not mechanic money. No, Nathaniel agreed. It's not. He walked out of the courthouse like he hadn't just dropped a bomb in the middle of her understanding of reality. Evelyn stood there for a moment, trying to process, then grabbed her purse and followed. Outside, a black town car waited at the curb. Not a taxi, an actual car service, the kind with a driver in a suit. Mr. Cross, the driver said, opening the door. Welcome. Nathaniel slid into the back seat like this was normal. Like mechanics from Queens regularly had drivers and town cars and apartments on the Upper East Side. Evelyn got in beside him, her mind spinning. Okay, she said as the car pulled into traffic. You want to tell me what the hell is going on? We're going to the new apartment. Rosa's bringing Lily. You'll have your own room, your own bathroom. There's an office if you need to work from home. That's not what I'm asking. Nathaniel looked at her finally. What are you asking? I'm asking why a mechanic needs a penthouse. I'm asking why lawyers who charge $1,000 an hour are arranging your marriage. I'm asking why you talk like someone who's done this before. Done what? Disappeared. Hidden. Become someone else. The car turned onto FDR Drive. Through the window, the East River glittered in afternoon sunlight. Normal people walked normal dogs on normal sidewalks, living normal lives that didn't involve marrying strangers for corporate positions and mysterious penthouses. Everyone has a past, Nathaniel said finally. Mine's complicated, but it doesn't affect you. The arrangement stays the same. Bullshit! Evelyn surprised herself with the vehemence. You don't get to keep secrets that might blow up in my face. If I'm walking into something, you're walking into exactly what you agreed to. A contract marriage. 2 years. Then you're free. And what about Lily? His jaw tightened. What about her? She's 4 years old and you're moving her to a new apartment with a strange woman. That affects her. Have you even told her what's happening? She knows we're moving. She knows you'll be living with us. Does she know it's temporary? That in 2 years I'll disappear from her life just like... Evelyn stopped herself, but it was too late. Just like her mother? Nathaniel's voice could have cut glass. Say it. That's what you were thinking. I wasn't... Yes, you were. And you're right. This is a terrible idea for a lot of reasons, and Lily's at the top of the list. He turned to look out the window. But I didn't have a choice. Neither did you, so we make it work. The car fell silent except for the hum of traffic. Evelyn wanted to push, to demand answers, to understand what kind of man needed this elaborate setup just to, what? Raise his daughter? Work as a mechanic? None of it made sense. But she'd grown up learning when to push and when to wait. This was a waiting moment. For now. Sulk. The penthouse occupied the top 2 floors of a building that probably cost more per month than Evelyn had earned in her entire life. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Central Park. The kitchen had marble countertops and appliances that looked like they belonged in a spaceship. The living room was bigger than her mother's entire house had been. "Your room's this way," Nathaniel said, leading her down a hallway. The bedroom was excessive. King-size bed, walk-in closet, attached bathroom with a tub big enough to swim in. The window had a view that real estate agents probably described as breathtaking while privately calculating their commission. "This is insane," Evelyn said. "It's necessary." "How is this necessary? You're a mechanic." Nathaniel set her suitcase, her one suitcase, because she didn't own enough to fill more than one, on the bed. "I was a mechanic," he corrected. "Now I'm your husband. And your husband needs to look like someone who belongs in your world." "My world? I was unemployed 3 weeks ago." "You're the COO of Meridian Dynamics now. You'll be CEO in 18 months. People will look at your life, your home, your family." He gestured at the room. "This is what they need to see." Evelyn sat on the bed because her legs suddenly felt unreliable. "This isn't real." "No," Nathaniel agreed, "but it has to look real. That's the arrangement." "Daddy!" Lily's voice echoed from the hallway, followed by the sound of small feet running. She burst into the room like a tiny hurricane, Rosa trailing behind with an apologetic expression. "I'm sorry, Nate. She got away from me." "It's fine." Nathaniel caught his daughter as she launched herself at him. "Hey, baby girl, what do you think of the new place?" "It's huge. My room has a balcony, and there's a library with a ladder that slides, and oh," Lily spotted Evelyn. "Ms. Evelyn, you're here. Did you see the library? We have to see the library." "Maybe later, Lily. Ms. Evelyn needs to—" "It's fine," Evelyn heard herself say. "I'd love to see the library." Lily grabbed her hand and dragged her back down the hallway, chattering about the sliding ladder, and all the books they could read and how elephants were very smart and probably liked libraries too. The library was, indeed, ridiculous. Built-in shelves, floor-to-ceiling, a rolling ladder, leather chairs that probably cost more than a semester of college. Half the shelves were already filled with children's books. "Daddy got me all these," Lily said proudly, "because I'm learning to read. I can read cat and dog and elephant and my name." "That's impressive," Evelyn said, and meant it. "Will you read to me? Daddy reads to me every night, but he does funny voices, and I want to hear your voices." "Sure. Yeah, we can do that." Lily settled onto one of the leather chairs with a book about, of course, elephants. Evelyn sat beside her and started reading about a baby elephant who got lost and found her family again. Halfway through, she looked up to find Nathaniel standing in the doorway, watching. That unreadable expression on his face. Their eyes met across the room, husband and wife, strangers playing house in a palace that didn't belong to either of them. Evelyn turned back to the book and kept reading, but she felt his gaze on her like a physical weight. Something was happening here, something more than a contract or an arrangement or a business deal. She just didn't know what yet, and that scared her more than anything else. Buntek. That night, after Lily was asleep and Rosa had gone home, Evelyn found Nathaniel in the kitchen. He'd changed into jeans and a t-shirt, looking more like the mechanic she'd met in Queens. He was making coffee, real coffee, not the instant stuff, with the kind of precise movements she was starting to recognize as characteristic. "Can't sleep?" he asked without turning around. "Can you?" "Not usually." He poured 2 cups, slid one across the counter to her. They stood in the enormous kitchen of their enormous penthouse, drinking coffee at 11 p.m. like strangers in a hotel. "I need to understand something," Evelyn said finally. "Why me? Out of everyone they could have found, why was I the right choice?" Nathaniel took a long sip of coffee. "You ask a lot of questions." "Yeah, well, I'm about to become a CEO. Questions are kind of my job now." "Fair point." He set his cup down. "You want the real answer?" "That would be refreshing, yeah." "You have the right background. Poor enough to be desperate, smart enough to be useful, ambitious enough to play the part convincingly. He said it without cruelty, just stating facts. And you have no connections to the families involved, no one to ask questions or interfere. The families? Evelyn caught that. Plural? It's complicated. Everything about this is complicated. Try me. Nathaniel looked at her for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, and turned it toward her. The article was from the Financial Times, dated 3 years ago. Tech heir Nathaniel Cross dies in yacht explosion off Greek coast. Evelyn read it twice, then 3 times. You're dead, she said stupidly. Officially, yes. But you're standing right here. People see what they expect to see. A mechanic in Queens? Nobody looks twice, especially not when they think Nathaniel Cross died in the Mediterranean 3 years ago. Evelyn's hands were shaking. She set the coffee cup down before she dropped it. Who are you? The question came out as a whisper. I told you, I'm your husband. I'm Lily's father. Everything else... He took the phone back, closed the article. Everything else is dead and buried, and it needs to stay that way. Why? To keep my daughter safe. The way he said it, flat, final, absolutely certain, told her this conversation was over. But Evelyn wasn't done. If you're really Nathaniel Cross, the tech heir, the billionaire, then what am I doing here? Why would you need this arrangement? Because sometimes the best way to hide is in plain sight. He finished his coffee. You wanted a job and money. I needed a cover story that made sense. We both get what we need. And Lily? Lily gets a stable home, a normal childhood, the chance to grow up without... He stopped himself. Without what? Without becoming a target. Target. The word hung in the air like smoke. Someone tried to kill you, Evelyn said slowly. That's why you faked your death. Someone tried to kill you and they killed my wife instead. The words landed like stones in water, creating ripples that spread and spread. Evelyn remembered that little girl reading about elephants finding their family, motherless, living with a father who died to keep her safe. Jesus, she breathed. So now you know. Nathaniel rinsed his cup in the sink, precise and methodical. The question is, are you going to keep the arrangement, or do we tear up the contract and you walk away? Evelyn should walk away. Any sane person would walk away from this mess of dead billionaires and fake identities and mysterious threats. But she thought about her mother in that hospital bed, about the bills stacked on her kitchen counter, about 19 job applications that went nowhere because she didn't have the right name or the right connections or the right anything. And she thought about a 4-year-old girl who'd lost her mother and desperately needed some kind of stability, even if it was fake. I'm staying, Evelyn said. You sure about that? No, but I'm staying anyway. Nathaniel studied her face, looking for what she didn't know. Weakness? Fear? Second thoughts? All right, he said finally. Then we have rules. You don't ask about my past. You don't dig into who I was. You don't put Lily at risk by getting curious. And what do? I make sure you get everything you were promised. The job, the money, the career. A pause. And I keep you safe. I didn't ask you to. You're my wife now. On paper, at least. That makes you part of this whether you like it or not. His expression was hard. So we do this my way, or we don't do it at all. Evelyn wanted to argue, to push back against this man who thought he could control everything with cold precision, but she'd learned to pick her battles. And right now, standing in this ridiculous kitchen, in this impossible penthouse, married to a dead man who'd somehow come back to life as a mechanic, she didn't have the energy to fight. Fine, she said. Your way. For now. For now, Nathaniel agreed. They stood in silence, this stranger and his dead man husband, both pretending they'd made a simple business arrangement, both knowing it was already far more complicated than that. Somewhere in the apartment, Lily was dreaming about elephants, and Evelyn wondered what the hell she'd just signed up for. The first week in this penthouse felt like living inside someone else's dream. Evelyn woke up each morning in sheets that probably cost more than her security deposit, stared at a ceiling she could barely see in the dim pre-dawn light, and had to remind herself this was real. The job started Monday. The money was already in her account. She'd checked 17 times, half expecting it to vanish like smoke. Nathaniel kept to himself mostly. He left early, where, she didn't ask, and came back around dinner time smelling like motor oil and coffee. Like he was still working at that shop in Queens, even though nothing about this apartment suggested he needed the money. It was Rosa who filled the silence during the days. "He's always been like this," Rosa said on the third morning, watching Nathaniel leave without saying goodbye. Just a quiet nod toward Evelyn, a kiss on Lily's head, and he was gone. Even before. Keeps everything locked up tight. Before. Evelyn was learning to fish for information carefully. Rosa gave her a look that said she knew exactly what Evelyn was doing. Before he became whoever he's pretending to be now. They were in the kitchen, Rosa teaching Evelyn how Lily liked her eggs, which apparently involved a very specific ratio of cheese to scrambled that bordered on scientific. "You knew him before the—" Evelyn lowered her voice even though Lily was in the other room, singing to her elephants. "Before the yacht." "I knew his wife," Rosa said quietly. "Grace. She hired me when Lily was born. Sweetest woman you'd ever meet. Too sweet for that world." That world. The one where tech heirs married socialites and lived on yachts and apparently got blown up for reasons no one would explain. "What happened to her?" Rosa's hand stilled on the whisk. "You'd have to ask him, and he won't tell you, so don't waste your breath." "He said someone killed her." "Someone did." Rosa went back to whisking with more force than necessary. "And he spent the last 3 years making sure they can't finish the job." Evelyn absorbed this. The paranoia about safety, the fake death, the mechanic cover story that didn't quite fit. "Is Lily safe here?" she had to ask. "If this little girl was in danger—" "Safer than she's been since her mother died." Rosa poured the eggs into the pan. "Nate doesn't do anything halfway. If he brought you here, if he's setting all this up, it's because he's thought through every angle. Trust that if nothing else." But trust was an expensive commodity, and Evelyn had learned not to spend it freely. Lily wandered in, dragging a stuffed elephant that had seen better days. "Is it breakfast time?" "Almost, mija. Go wash your hands." "Ms. Evelyn, will you help me reach the soap?" It was such a small thing, a 4-year-old who couldn't quite reach the bathroom sink. But it punched through Evelyn's careful detachment like a fist through paper. She helped Lily wash her hands, watched the little girl carefully soap between each finger the way someone had obviously taught her, and felt something dangerous settling in her chest. Attachment. The thing Nathaniel had warned her against. Too late, she thought. Way too late. Later that afternoon, while Lily napped and Rosa ran errands, Evelyn found herself alone in the penthouse. She'd been avoiding Nathaniel's space, the closed door at the end of the hall that he disappeared behind sometimes, the office that was clearly his territory. But curiosity was a hard thing to ignore. The office was locked. Of course it was. She tried the handle twice just to be sure, then stood there feeling stupid for even attempting it. Looking for something? Evelyn spun around. Nathaniel stood at the end of the hallway, still in his work clothes, watching her with that flat expression that gave away nothing. "I was just—" "What?" Snooping, trying to understand who she'd married. "The apartment's big. I got lost." "The office is the only locked door in the apartment." He walked past her, pulled out a key, and opened it. "If you needed something, you could have asked." The office was not what she expected. No personal items, no photos. Just a desk with 3 monitors, a leather chair, and filing cabinets that probably contained secrets she didn't want to know about. "I keep business stuff in here," Nathaniel said. "Nothing that concerns you, but I don't like locked doors making people curious. So now you've seen it. Satisfied?" Not remotely. Something that might have been amusement flickered across his face. "At least you're honest. Someone in this marriage should be." The words came out sharper than she intended. Nathaniel's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his posture. A tension that hadn't been there before. "You think I'm lying to you?" "I think you're lying to everyone, including yourself." "And what exactly am I lying about?" Evelyn gestured at the office, the penthouse, him. "All of this, the mechanic thing, the simple single dad routine. You move like someone who's been trained. You talk like someone who's used to people listening. And this apartment?" She laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "This isn't hiding. This is control. You're controlling every variable, every angle, every person who gets close. Nathaniel was quiet for a long moment. Then he stepped into the office, gestured for her to follow. "Close the door," he said. She did. He sat behind the desk, laced his fingers together, and looked at her with those dark eyes that missed nothing. "You're right," he said simply. "I'm controlling everything I can control because the things I can't control are the things that get people killed. Like your wife. Like my wife." No emotion in his voice, just fact. "Grace died because I missed something. One detail, one person I didn't account for, and she paid the price." "So you fake your own death and hide in Queens, fixing cars." "I faked my death to draw attention away from my daughter. The mechanic work keeps me grounded, reminds me that I'm not the person I used to be." "And who were you?" Nathaniel smiled, but it was cold. "Someone who thought money and power made them invincible. Someone who learned the hard way that it doesn't." Evelyn sat down in the chair across from him. "The arrangement, the marriage, me. This is all part of some bigger plan, isn't it?" "Yes." At least he wasn't lying about that. "And when it's over, when the 2 years are up and I walk away, then you get everything you were promised and Lily and I disappear again, somewhere new, somewhere safe." The casual way he said it, like uprooting a 4-year-old's entire life was just another variable to control, made something hot and angry rise in Evelyn's throat. "You can't do that to her," she said. "You can't let her get attached to this place, to this life, to me," she didn't say, "and then just rip it all away. I can and I will, because keeping her alive matters more than keeping her happy. That's a terrible way to raise a child. It's the only way to raise this child." Nathaniel's voice hardened. "You don't understand what's at stake here." "Then explain it to me." "No." They stared at each other across the desk. Evelyn felt her hands shaking and pressed them against her thighs to make it stop. "I can't do this if you won't trust me," she said finally. "I can't live here, help you with Lily, play the corporate wife, and just not know what I'm walking into." "You knew what you were walking into when you signed the contract." "I knew I was marrying a stranger for money. I didn't know the stranger was a dead billionaire hiding from whoever killed his wife. And now you do know. So the question is, does it change anything? Did it?" Evelyn thought about the money in her account. The job starting Monday. Her mother's medical bills paid in full as of yesterday. The future she'd been fighting for since she was old enough to understand that poverty wasn't just about money. It was about doors that never opened and opportunities that never came. "No," she said quietly. "It doesn't change anything." Nathaniel nodded like he'd expected that answer. "Then we continue as planned. You start at Meridian Monday. I'll brief you tonight on what to expect." "You'll brief me? You think they're just handing you a COO position because you have an MBA from a state school?" His tone wasn't cruel, just factual. "This is theater. You're playing a role. I need to make sure you're ready for it." Evelyn wanted to be offended. But he was right. She'd never run a company before, never operated at that level. The degree got her in the door, but actually doing the job? That was something else entirely. "Fine," she said. "Brief me, teach me, whatever you need to do." "Good." Nathaniel stood. "We start after Lily goes to sleep. Bring coffee. It's going to be a long night." He left the office, leaving Evelyn sitting there wondering what the hell she'd agreed to. Again, the briefing started at 9 p.m. in Nathaniel's office. He'd set up a laptop, pulled up financial reports and organizational charts, and proceeded to download what felt like an entire business education directly into Evelyn's brain. "Meridian Dynamics is a mid-tier tech company with holdings in 3 sectors," he said, pointing at the screen. "Cloud infrastructure, enterprise software, and a failing consumer electronics division that's bleeding money. Your job is to stabilize the infrastructure division, show growth in software, and quietly kill the electronics arm before it tanks the whole company." Quietly kill, right, because I definitely know how to do that. "You will by Monday." He pulled up another document. "The board consists of 7 members. 3 are loyal to the CFO, Marcus Webb. He's expecting you to fail so he can consolidate power. 2 are neutral. The remaining 2 are planted by the family that arranged this marriage. They'll support you, but only as long as you're useful." Evelyn's head was spinning. "Why would anyone set me up to fail?" "Because failure is predictable. If you fail, Webb takes over, business continues as usual, and everyone knows where they stand. Nathaniel looked at her. But if you succeed, you upset the balance. That makes people nervous. So I'm supposed to succeed without making people too nervous? You're supposed to succeed while making people think it was their idea. Corporate politics. Evelyn had read about this stuff in textbooks, but experiencing it in real time was different. They worked through scenarios for 3 hours. How to handle aggressive board members. How to read financial statements for warning signs. How to delegate without losing control. How to project confidence even when she had no idea what she was doing. You're going to feel like an imposter, Nathaniel said around midnight. Everyone does at this level. The trick is making sure no one else knows it. Is that what you did? When you were... She gestured vaguely at him. When you were you? I was born into it. I never had to pretend. He closed the laptop. But I watched enough people fake it to know how it's done. And you're smarter than most of them. You'll figure it out. It was maybe the first genuine compliment he'd given her. Evelyn didn't know what to do with it. Why are you helping me? She asked. Really, the contract says I get the job. It doesn't say you have to train me. Nathaniel was quiet for a moment. Then, if you fail, people ask questions. Questions lead to scrutiny. Scrutiny leads to someone looking too closely at your mechanic husband and his dead tech air background. He met her eyes. I'm helping you because your success keeps Lily safe. That's the only reason that matters. Right. Because everything came back to protecting his daughter. Evelyn should have felt used, manipulated, like a pawn in whatever game he was playing. Instead, she felt something almost like respect. He'd made his priorities clear from day one. No lies about partnership or pretending they were building something together. Just cold, honest calculation. She could work with that. Same time tomorrow? She asked. Every night until Monday. You'll be ready. Evelyn stood, stretched muscles that had gone stiff from sitting. Can I ask you something? You're going to anyway. Fair point. Did you love her? Your wife? Nathaniel's expression went very still. That's not relevant. It is to me, because Lily asks about her mother sometimes, and I don't know what to say. Tell her the truth, that Grace loved her very much, that she died trying to keep her safe. His voice was flat again, emotions locked away. Lily doesn't need details. She just needs to know she was loved. Was she? Loved? By Grace, yes, completely. The non-answer was an answer itself. Nathaniel had married someone, had a child with her, built a life that looked perfect from the outside. But love? That was a different question. I'm sorry, Evelyn said quietly, for what happened to her. Don't be. Sorry doesn't change anything. He turned back to his computer, effectively dismissing her. Evelyn left the office feeling like she'd glimpsed something raw and quickly hidden. In the hallway, she passed Lily's room. The door was cracked open, nightlight glowing soft purple. She could hear the little girl's steady breathing, peaceful in sleep. What kind of life was this for a kid? Moving every few years, living with a father who controlled everything out of fear, losing her mother to violence she was too young to understand? And now Evelyn was part of it, another temporary fixture in Lily's unstable world. She went to bed thinking about dead wives and dangerous secrets and corporate positions she wasn't qualified for. Somewhere in the building, Nathaniel was probably still awake, monitoring whatever variables he thought he could control. Neither of them were sleeping well these days. Monday arrived faster than Evelyn expected. She stood in front of the mirror in her bedroom, adjusting a suit that Rosa had insisted she buy from somewhere with a name Evelyn couldn't pronounce. Charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, the kind of outfit that said, I belong here, even if everything inside her was screaming the opposite. You look nice, Lily said from the doorway. She was still in pajamas, clutching her favorite elephant. Thanks, sweetie. Shouldn't you be getting dressed for pre-K? Rosa's helping me pick. I want to wear my blue dress, but she says it's too cold. Lily climbed onto the bed. Are you nervous? Kids. They saw right through everything. A little, Evelyn admitted. Daddy says being nervous is okay. It means you care about doing good. Your daddy's pretty smart. I know. Lily swung her legs, thoughtful. He's nervous too, I can tell. About what? You, and the job, and the people who might be mean to you. Evelyn sat down beside her. Did he say people would be mean to me? No, but I heard him talking to Rosa. He said some people don't like change and your change. Lily looked up at her with those serious dark eyes. I like change. Change brought you here. Something in Evelyn's chest cracked open. She pulled the little girl into a hug, breathing in the scent of strawberry shampoo and childhood. I like change too, she whispered. When she pulled back, Lily was smiling. You're going to be great, just like Daddy said. He'd said that? Evelyn filed that information away for later examination. The car service arrived at 8. Nathaniel was already gone. Left at dawn, Rosa said, didn't say where. So Evelyn rode to her first day alone, watching Manhattan slide past the windows and trying to remember everything he'd taught her. Project Confidence, read the room. Don't apologize for taking up space. The Meridian building was glass and steel, 30 floors of corporate ambition. Evelyn's heels clicked against marble as she walked through the lobby, badge already programmed with her name and title. Evelyn Hart, Chief Operating Officer. It still didn't feel real. Her office was on the 27th floor. Corner office, naturally. Windows overlooking the city, desk the size of a small car. Assistant already waiting with coffee and a schedule. Ms. Hart, welcome. I'm Jennifer Chen, your executive assistant. Young, efficient, smiled like she meant it. I've compiled the morning briefing materials and your calendar is synced across all devices. The executive team meeting starts in 30 minutes. Executive team meeting, Evelyn accepted the coffee. Right, of course. Jennifer's smile didn't waver, but something shifted in her eyes. Recognition, maybe. That this new COO had no idea what she was doing. I've included background on each team member in your briefing packet, Jennifer said smoothly. Key priorities, recent projects, political alliances. Thought it might be helpful for your first meeting. A lifeline. Evelyn grabbed it. Yes, thank you. That's very helpful. She spent the next 25 minutes cramming names and faces, trying to build a mental map of who wanted her to succeed and who was sharpening knives behind their polite smiles. Marcus Webb, CFO. Nathaniel had warned her about him specifically. 48, ambitious, connected to 3 board members and half the finance industry. He'd been in line for COO before the family intervention that put Evelyn here instead. Yeah, he was definitely sharpening knives. The executive team meeting happened in a conference room that could fit her old apartment twice over. Evelyn walked in, head high, channeling every ounce of fake confidence Nathaniel had drilled into her. 8 faces turned toward her, some curious, some skeptical. Marcus Webb looked like he'd just discovered something unpleasant on his shoe. Ms. Hart, he said, voice smooth as oil. Welcome to Meridian. We've been eager to meet the woman who impressed the board enough to earn this position. Translation. We don't believe you earned anything, and we're going to prove it. Thank you, Mr. Webb. I'm looking forward to working with all of you. Evelyn sat at the head of the table like Nathaniel had instructed. Take the power seat. Make them react to you, not the other way around. The meeting proceeded like a cage match disguised as corporate strategy. They tested her, through jargon and acronyms, referenced projects she couldn't possibly know about, watched to see if she'd fumble or admit ignorance. But Evelyn had grown up learning to bluff her way through situations where she didn't belong. This was just a different kind of survival. The infrastructure division's Q3 numbers, Webb said, pulling up a slide. As you can see, we're tracking below projections. What's your plan to correct course? Evelyn looked at the numbers. Nathaniel had walked her through this exact scenario last night, predicted Webb would use it as a trap. The projections were unrealistic, she said calmly, based on market conditions that shifted in Q2. If we adjust for the supply chain disruptions in August and the enterprise client loss in September, we're actually performing at expected levels. Webb's expression flickered. Just for a second, surprised that she'd done her homework. And your strategy moving forward? Consolidate vendor relationships, renegotiate contracts with our top 3 suppliers, and shift resources from the consumer electronics division, which is hemorrhaging money, into infrastructure where we can actually show growth. Someone at the table, Patricia Nguyen, VP of Operations, made a small approving sound. Webb leaned back in his chair. The consumer electronics division has been part of Meridian's portfolio for 15 years, and it's been losing money for the last 3. Sometimes you have to cut losses to save the whole. Evelyn met his eyes. Unless you have a better strategy for stopping the bleeding. The room went quiet. Webb smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. No, I think your assessment is accurate. The meeting continued, but something had shifted. She'd survived the first test, drawn blood even, in her own small way. When it ended, Patricia caught up with her in the hallway. Not bad, she said, for a first day. Webb was expecting you to fold. I don't fold easily. I can see that. Patricia glanced around, lowered her voice. Word of advice? Watch your back. Marcus doesn't like being showed up, especially not by someone he considers beneath him. Meaning? Meaning you're young, female, and you came out of nowhere. That makes you a threat to the old guard. Patricia's expression was serious. They're going to push harder. Test you in ways that aren't as obvious as today's meeting. Let them push, Evelyn said with more confidence than she felt. I can push back. Patricia smiled. I believe you. Just remember, not everyone here wants you to fail. Some of us are tired of the Marcus Webbs of the world running the show. She walked away, leaving Evelyn in the hallway with the distinct impression she'd just found an ally. Or maybe another player in a game she didn't fully understand yet. That night she came home exhausted. The penthouse was quiet, Lily already in bed, Rosa gone for the evening. Nathaniel was in the kitchen making dinner. Actual dinner, not takeout. Something with garlic and tomatoes that smelled incredible. You survived, he said, without looking up from the stove. Barely. Evelyn dropped into a chair. Webb tried to gut me in the first 20 minutes. And I remembered what you taught me, used his own numbers against him. Nathaniel plated food, pasta, she realized, with what looked like homemade sauce, and set it in front of her. Good, he said. He'll try again. Harder this time. Patricia Nguyen warned me. Nguyen's smart. If she's signaling alliance, take it. You'll need friends. He sat across from her with his own plate. But don't trust anyone completely. Corporate loyalty is expensive and temporary. They ate in silence for a minute. The pasta was better than it had any right to be. Where'd you learn to cook? Evelyn asked. Grace taught me, said I couldn't raise a daughter on takeout and frozen dinners. A pause. She was right. It was the first time he'd mentioned his wife voluntarily. Evelyn didn't push, just filed it away with all the other small pieces of information she was collecting. Lily was asking about you tonight, Nathaniel said. Wanted to know if the people at your work were nice to you. What did you tell her? That some people are nice and some aren't, but you're tough enough to handle both. Evelyn looked at him across the table. You have a lot of faith in someone you barely know. I know enough. He met her eyes. You grew up fighting. Corporate politics is just a different kind of fight. You'll figure it out. And if I don't, then we adjust the plan. But you will. He said it with absolute certainty, like failure wasn't even a variable worth considering. Evelyn wanted to ask what happened if she proved him wrong. If she crashed and burned and took his careful cover story down with her, but she was too tired for that conversation. Instead, she finished her pasta, thanked him for dinner, and went to bed in her ridiculously expensive bedroom in her impossible penthouse life. The next few weeks settled into a rhythm that felt almost normal. Evelyn went to work, navigated corporate politics with increasing confidence, came home to Lily's chatter about pre-K and elephants and whatever new thing she'd learned that day. Nathaniel continued his mechanic routine, though Evelyn noticed he was gone more often now, sometimes for whole days. He'd text Rosa to stay late, tell Lily he had to work, and disappear into whatever shadow life he was maintaining. She didn't ask, the rules were clear, but curiosity was a patient thing. One Saturday, 3 weeks into the arrangement, Evelyn woke to voices in the living room, male voices, unfamiliar. She pulled on a robe and ventured out carefully. 3 men stood with Nathaniel near the windows. They wore suits that screamed money and danger in equal measure. One of them was talking in low, urgent tones while Nathaniel listened with that flat expression she'd come to recognize as his thinking face. Can't keep putting this off. The family's getting impatient. Nathaniel noticed Evelyn. His expression didn't change, but something in his posture shifted. Gentlemen, we'll continue this later. The men turned. One of them, older, silver-haired, expensive watch, looked at Evelyn with open assessment. This is her? He asked Nathaniel. The wife? Evelyn, these are business associates. They were just leaving. It wasn't a suggestion. The men filed out without argument, but Silverhair paused at the door. We'll be in touch, Cross. Don't make us wait too long. The door closed behind them. Evelyn stood in her robe in the middle of the living room, trying to process what she'd just witnessed. Business associates, she repeated. Right. They're not your concern. They're in my home. That makes them my concern. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. This home is part of the arrangement, not yours. Not yet. The words landed like a slap. Evelyn felt heat rise in her face. You're right, she said quietly. My mistake. She turned to go back to her room, but his voice stopped her. Evelyn. She didn't turn around. They won't be back, he said. I'll handle things elsewhere from now on. Whatever you need to do. She kept her voice level, professional. It's your house. In her room, she sat on the bed and tried to slow her racing heart. This was the problem with fake marriages and business arrangements. Eventually, you started forgetting which parts were real and which were just performance. And when reality came crashing back, it hurt more than it should. The tension from that Saturday morning lingered like smoke in a closed room. Nathaniel became even more careful about separating his worlds. No more mysterious visitors. No conversations that ended abruptly when Evelyn walked into a room. He was polite, distant, exactly what the contract specified. It drove her crazy. Not because she wanted more from him. At least that's what she told herself at 3 a.m. when sleep wouldn't come and she could hear him moving around in his office down the hall. Work became her escape. At Meridian, the rules made sense. Performance mattered. Results spoke louder than secrets. She'd been COO for 6 weeks when the first real crisis hit. Jennifer knocked on her office door at 8:30 on a Tuesday morning, her usual calm replaced by something that looked dangerously close to panic. Ms. Hart, we have a problem. The Techron deal just fell through. Evelyn looked up from the quarterly report she'd been reviewing. Define fell through. They're pulling out, complete withdrawal, $50 million in projected revenue gone. Jennifer set a tablet on the desk. Their CEO sent this an hour ago. The email was brief and brutal. Market conditions, strategic realignment, better opportunities elsewhere. Corporate speak for, we found someone else. Who's the someone else? Evelyn asked. We don't know yet, but the timing is suspicious. We were 48 hours from signing. Suspicious didn't begin to cover it. Evelyn had spent weeks on the Techron deal, negotiating terms, building relationships, convincing the board it was worth the investment. And now it was gone. She called an emergency meeting with her senior team. Marcus Webb showed up looking like Christmas had come early. Unfortunate, he said, settling into his chair with obvious satisfaction, though perhaps not unexpected. Techron's been notoriously unreliable. They were reliable until yesterday, Evelyn countered. Someone got to them. Someone offered them something better. Or they simply realized Meridian wasn't the right fit. Webb's smile was sharp. These things happen, especially with newer leadership that hasn't established strong industry relationships yet. The dig landed exactly where he'd aimed it. Several people around the table shifted uncomfortably. Patricia Nguyen spoke up. Do we have any intel on who might have poached them? I'm working on it, Evelyn said, keeping her voice steady. In the meantime, we need damage control. Jennifer, set up calls with our other enterprise clients. I want to make sure this isn't the start of a pattern. The meeting lasted an hour. By the end, Evelyn had an action plan and a migraine that felt like it was trying to split her skull open. Webb caught her in the hallway after. A word of advice, he said, voice low enough that no one else could hear. Sometimes the best strategy is knowing when you're out of your depth. This role requires experience you simply don't have. Evelyn turned to face him fully. Is that concern, Marcus? Or are you hoping I'll fail so you can slide into this office? I'm hoping you'll recognize reality before you damage the company further. He straightened his tie. But hope is a fragile thing. He walked away, leaving Evelyn standing in the hallway with her hands clenched so tight her nails cut into her palms. That night, she came home to find Nathaniel in the kitchen with Lily, helping her with some kind of art project that involved an alarming amount of glitter. Ms. Evelyn! Lily jumped up, trailing sparkles. Look what we're making. It's a castle for the elephants. The castle was mostly glue and construction paper, but Lily's enthusiasm made it beautiful. That's amazing, sweetie. Evelyn tried to muster energy she didn't feel. You're quite the artist. Nathaniel glanced at her. Rough day? You could say that. Daddy, can Ms. Evelyn help with the towers? We need 4 and I only have 3. Maybe later, baby girl. I think Ms. Evelyn needs some quiet time. But Lily had already grabbed Evelyn's hand, pulling her toward the table covered in craft supplies. And honestly, building glitter towers for elephants sounded better than thinking about Marcus Webb's smug face. They worked in comfortable silence. Well, Lily provided a running commentary on elephant architecture, which apparently was very specific, while Nathaniel cleaned up dinner. The Techron deal fell apart, Evelyn said quietly, cutting construction paper into tower shapes. Nathaniel's hands stilled at the sink. When? This morning. Someone poached them right before signing. Who? I don't know yet, but it's not random. The timing's too perfect. Lily was absorbed in applying glitter to her castle walls, not paying attention to the adult conversation happening around her. Webb, Nathaniel said. It wasn't a question. That's my guess, but I can't prove it. Evelyn watched glitter fall like snow onto construction paper. He's positioning me to fail, make it look like I'm incompetent so the board loses confidence. Then you need to make it backfire. How? The deal's gone. I've got nothing. Nathaniel dried his hands, came over to the table. He picked up a piece of construction paper, started folding it with precise movements. You're thinking about this wrong, he said. Webb wants you focused on the loss, on defending yourself. That keeps you reactive, always playing catch-up. So what do I do instead? You go on offense, find a bigger deal, something that makes Techron look like small potatoes. He handed the folded paper to Lily. An origami elephant, perfect in every detail. And you do it fast before the board meeting next week. Lily squealed with delight at the paper elephant. Evelyn stared at Nathaniel. You make it sound simple. It's not simple. It's necessary. He met her eyes. You want to survive in that world, you can't just defend. You have to hit back harder. I don't know how to find a major deal in a week. Yes, you do. You just don't know you know. He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. Check your email in 10 minutes. I'm sending you some contacts. People who owe me favors. Why would they owe you favors? You're a mechanic. Nathaniel smiled, but it was cold. I used to be a lot of things. Some of those people remember. Before Evelyn could respond, Lily held up her glitter castle. It's done. Can we put it in my room? Of course, baby girl. Come on. Let's find the perfect spot. Nathaniel scooped her up, castle and all, and headed toward her bedroom. Leaving Evelyn sitting at the table covered in glitter and construction paper scraps, wondering who the hell she'd actually married. 10 minutes later, her phone chimed. The email contained 3 names, 3 phone numbers, and a brief note. These people can help. Mention my name. They'll understand. No signature. No explanation of how a supposedly dead tech heir still commanded favors in an industry he'd left 3 years ago. Evelyn looked at the names, recognized 2 of them, major players in enterprise software, the kind of people who didn't take calls from random COOs at mid-tier companies. She dialed the first number before she could talk herself out of it. It rang twice before a woman answered. This is Catherine Reeves. Ms. Reeves, my name is Evelyn Hart. I'm the COO at Meridian Dynamics. I was told you might be willing to speak with me about a potential partnership. Told by whom? Evelyn took a breath. Nathaniel Cross. Silence on the other end, long enough that Evelyn thought the call had dropped. Then, Cross is alive? Yes. And he sent you to me. He said you might owe him a favor. Catherine laughed, sharp and surprised. Owe him? That man saved my company when everyone else was ready to let it burn. I owe him a hell of a lot more than a favor. Her tone shifted, became businesslike. What do you need? By midnight, Evelyn had 3 calls scheduled for the next day, 2 meetings set up for Thursday, and the framework of a deal that would make Techron look like pocket change. She found Nathaniel in his office, door cracked open, staring at multiple monitors displaying financial data that scrolled past faster than she could process. Thank you, she said from the doorway, for the contacts. He didn't look away from the screens. Did they help? Yeah, they did. More than I expected. Good. Evelyn should have left it there, gone to bed, gotten some sleep before the insanity of tomorrow started. Instead, she stepped into the office. Why did Catherine Reeves sound shocked that you're alive? Because she attended my funeral. And she believed it? Everyone believed it. That was the point. Nathaniel finally looked at her. I'm trusting you with information that could put Lily in danger. Don't make me regret it. I'm not going to tell anyone. You say that now, but people talk. They let things slip without meaning to. And all it takes is one wrong person hearing one wrong detail. Evelyn moved closer to the desk. You keep acting like I'm going to betray you, like I'm the enemy. You're not the enemy, but you're also not permanent. In 18 months, you'll be gone. Back to your own life. I need to remember that. The word shouldn't have hurt. This was a business arrangement, temporary by design, but they hurt anyway. Right, Evelyn said quietly. Temporary. I remember. She turned to leave, but Nathaniel's voice stopped her. The people I connected you with, they're good people. Smart. Fair. But they're doing this because they trust me, which means your success reflects on my judgment. Don't waste it. I won't. And Evelyn? He was looking at her again, those dark eyes unreadable. Be careful. If Webb is playing the game you think he is, losing Techron won't be his only move. He'll escalate. Let him. I'm not scared of Marcus Webb. Maybe you should be. Desperation makes people dangerous. Evelyn thought about that as she went to bed. About desperate people and dangerous games and how far she'd come from that studio apartment in the Bronx. She'd wanted this. The power, the position, the chance to prove she belonged in rooms where people like Marcus Webb thought she had no right to exist. Now she had it, and it turned out winning was just the beginning of the fight. The week exploded into motion. Evelyn met with Catherine Reeves on Wednesday morning. By afternoon, they'd sketched out a partnership deal that would integrate Reeves's AI technology with Meridian's infrastructure division. The potential revenue made Techron look like a rounding error. Thursday brought meetings with 2 other contacts from Nathaniel's list. Both conversations went better than Evelyn had dared hope. By Friday, she had the framework of 3 major deals, any one of which would have been a career-making win. Together, they were transformative. But she also had a problem. Marcus Webb knew something was happening. She could see it in the way he watched her during meetings, the questions he asked that seemed casual but weren't. You've been busy this week, he commented Friday afternoon, catching her by the elevators. Lots of meetings with external partners. Just exploring opportunities, Evelyn said lightly. Catherine Reeves. Interesting choice. She's notoriously selective about partnerships. So he was tracking her meetings. Evelyn kept her expression neutral. Sometimes fresh perspectives open doors. And sometimes they get you in over your head. Webb pressed the elevator button. I'd hate to see you commit Meridian to something you can't deliver on. Worried about me, Marcus? That's touching. Worried about the company. There's a difference. The elevator arrived. They rode down in silence that felt like a standoff. When the doors opened at the lobby, Webb turned to her. Whatever you're planning, make sure it's solid. The board doesn't have patience for failed experiments. He walked away, leaving Evelyn with the distinct impression she'd just been threatened. She called Nathaniel from the car. Webb knows I'm working on something big, she said without preamble. He's digging. Expected. What did you tell him? Nothing, but he's going to find out eventually. Not eventually. You're going to tell him. Nathaniel's voice was calm. At the board meeting Monday, you're going to present all 3 deals fully formed with projections and timelines. Make it impossible for him to undercut you without looking like he's sabotaging the company. That's insane. I can't have all 3 deals ready by Monday. Yes, you can. I'll help. Nathaniel, do you want to win or not? The question hung in the air. Of course she wanted to win. That was the whole point. But this felt different. Bigger. Like she was stepping into something she couldn't step back from. I want to win, she said quietly. Then trust me. We'll work through the weekend. By Monday, you'll have everything you need. That weekend became a blur of spreadsheets and projections and late-night strategy sessions in Nathaniel's office. He was different when he worked, focused in a way that was almost frightening. He saw patterns in financial data that Evelyn had missed, anticipated objections before they arose, structured arguments that were bulletproof. Where did you learn this? She asked Saturday night, somewhere around 2 a.m. Business school, then trial by fire running my father's company. He didn't look up from the laptop. You learn fast when failure means losing everything. Is that what happened? You lost everything? I walked away from everything. There's a difference. Evelyn wanted to push, to understand the distinction, but Lily appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. Daddy, I had a bad dream. Nathaniel's entire demeanor shifted. He was out of his chair in seconds, scooping her up. What kind of bad dream, baby girl? The kind with monsters. Well, monsters aren't allowed in this house. You know that. He started carrying her back to her room. Come on, let's check under the bed and in the closet. Make sure they got the message. Evelyn watched them go, something twisting in her chest. This was the man who'd coldly calculated every angle of their arrangement, who'd faked his death and manipulated legal systems and treated people like chess pieces. And he was also the father who checked for monsters and made origami elephants and cut his daughter's food into careful pieces. The contradiction was giving her whiplash. By Sunday night, the presentation was ready. 3 deals, complete with financial models and risk assessments and implementation timelines that would make the board's head spin. This is good work, Nathaniel said, reviewing the final slides. Webb won't see it coming. What if he tries to block it anyway? He will, but you'll have answers for every objection because we've already wargamed them all. Nathaniel closed the laptop. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be brutal. Evelyn stood to leave, then paused. Can I ask you something? You're going to anyway. She smiled despite herself. Why are you doing this, really? The training, the contacts, the help. The contract doesn't require it. Nathaniel was quiet for a long moment. When Grace died, I made myself a promise. That Lily would grow up safe. That she'd have a normal as I could give her. He looked at Evelyn. You being successful keeps the cover story intact. That keeps Lily safe. So yes, I help you. Because protecting my daughter is the only thing that matters. Always back to that. The only reason that counted. Evelyn should have felt used, manipulated. Instead, she just felt tired. Right, she said. For Lily. For Lily, he agreed. Monday morning arrived with the weight of inevitability. Evelyn wore her best suit, navy this time, with the red heels that made her feel like she could take on the world, or at least a hostile board meeting. The boardroom filled slowly. 7 board members, the executive team, various assistants and note-takers. Marcus Webb sat across from her, expression carefully neutral. Let's begin, said Richard Chen, board chairman. Ms. Hart, I understand you have something to present? I do. Evelyn stood, clicked to the first slide. As you know, the Techron deal fell through last week. Some of you may see that as a setback. Webb shifted in his chair. I see it as an opportunity to aim higher. Next slide. I'm pleased to present 3 partnership agreements that will position Meridian as a leader in enterprise AI integration. The next 40 minutes were a masterclass in preparation meeting opportunity. She walked them through the Catherine Reeves partnership, the AI integration with Meridian's infrastructure, revenue projections that made several board members sit up straighter, then the second deal, then the third. By the time she finished, the room was silent. Richard Chen spoke first. These numbers are ambitious. They're conservative, actually. I've run multiple scenarios. Even in a worst-case situation, we're looking at 40% revenue growth year over year. And the implementation timeline? Aggressive but achievable. We'd start with Reeves's technology, use that success to leverage the other partnerships. Webb finally found his voice. This is a massive resource commitment. If any one of these deals falls through, they won't. Evelyn met his eyes. I've spent the last week building these relationships. Everyone involved is committed. In a week? You built 3 major partnerships in a week? Webb's skepticism was obvious. That's not how enterprise deals work. It is when you have the right connections. And what connections do you have that we don't? Evelyn smiled. Private ones. From before I joined Meridian. It wasn't exactly a lie. Nathaniel had given her the connections. She just wasn't specifying when or how. The board members exchanged glances. Patricia Nguyen was trying not to smile. I move we approve Ms. Hart's proposal, said Jennifer Wakefield, one of the board members Nathaniel had mentioned was planted by his family. This is exactly the kind of bold strategy Meridian needs. Second, said Thomas Rivera, the other planted member. The vote was 5-2 in favor. Webb and his closest ally voted against, but they were outnumbered. Evelyn had won. After the meeting, Patricia cornered her in the hallway. "That was impressive," she said quietly. "Reckless, but impressive. How did you really pull those deals together so fast?" "Hard work and good timing. And private connections you're not talking about." Patricia studied her. "Everyone has secrets, Evelyn. Just make sure yours don't come back to bite you." "Noted. Also watch your back. Webb looked like he wanted to throw you out a window."
"Let him try," Patricia laughed. "I'm starting to like you. Don't make me regret it." That evening, Evelyn came home feeling like she'd run a marathon and won. Barely. Nathaniel was in the kitchen again, this time making something that smelled like garlic and lemon. "How'd it go?" he asked. "I won, 5-2. "Good." "That's it? Just good?"
He looked at her, something that might have been approval in his eyes. "What do you want? Congratulations? You did what needed to be done. That's the job." "You're impossible." "I've been told." He went back to cooking. "There's champagne in the fridge. Rosa bought it this afternoon. Said you'd want to celebrate." Evelyn found the bottle. Good stuff, probably expensive. She poured a glass, feeling the tension of the day start to ease. "You should have some," she said. "I don't drink." "Ever?" "Not anymore." Another piece of information filed away. Another glimpse of whoever Nathaniel Cross used to be. Lily ran in from the living room, tackled Evelyn's legs. "Ms. Evelyn, Daddy said you won. What did you win?" "A work thing, sweetie." "Like a prize?" "Sort of." "Can I see it?" Evelyn laughed, picked her up. "It's not that kind of prize. It's more like, I gotta keep doing my job." "That's a weird prize." "Yeah, it kind of is." They ate dinner together, the three of them, like a real family instead of a business arrangement. Lily chattered about pre-K and her friend Emma, who also liked elephants. Nathaniel was quieter than usual, but present in a way he sometimes wasn't. After Lily went to bed, Evelyn found him on the balcony. The city spread out below them, millions of lights against the darkness. "Thank you," she said, "for the help. I wouldn't have pulled this off without you." "You would have, just would have taken longer." "Still, thank you." Nathaniel turned to look at her. In the dim light from the apartment, his face was softer than usual, almost human. "You did good work this week," he said. "You earned this." Coming from him, that meant something. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, both looking out at the city. "Webb's going to escalate," Nathaniel said finally. "Losing that vote hurt his standing with the board. He'll need to regain ground." "Let him try." "I'm serious, Evelyn. Desperate people make mistakes, dangerous ones." "I can handle Marcus Webb." "Can you?" He turned to face her fully. "Because this isn't just corporate politics anymore. You embarrassed him in front of the board, made him look weak. Men like that don't forgive." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying be careful. Watch your back. Don't assume the fight's over just because you won a battle." The intensity in his voice made something cold slide down Evelyn's spine. "Do you know something I don't? I know how these things work, how people like Webb operate when they feel cornered." He held her gaze. "Just promise me you'll be careful." "I promise." But standing there on the balcony, with the city lights below and Nathaniel's warning hanging in the air, Evelyn had the uncomfortable feeling she'd just stepped into something much bigger than a corporate rivalry. And maybe, just maybe, she should have been more afraid. The gala was announced 3 days later. Annual Meridian Dynamics charity event, black tie, all executives expected to attend with their spouses. "You have to come," like Evelyn told Nathaniel that evening. "It's not optional." "I don't do galas." "Well, you do now. You're my husband. People will ask questions if you're not there." Nathaniel looked up from whatever he was reading. "What kind of questions?" "The kind that poke holes in our story." "Come on, it's one night. You stand next to me, smile at rich people, and we leave as soon as it's socially acceptable." "I don't smile at rich people." "Then stand there looking mysterious and handsome. I'm sure someone will find it charming." The words were out before she could stop them. Handsome. Had she really just called him handsome? Nathaniel's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "Fine. One night, but we leave early. Deal." The week leading up to the gala brought a strange kind of normalcy. Evelyn worked on implementing the new partnerships, navigated board politics, and somehow managed not to strangle Marcus Webb when he made passive-aggressive comments in meetings. At home, things shifted too. Subtle changes. Nathaniel started joining them for breakfast sometimes. Lily insisted on showing him every piece of art she made, and he listened with the kind of attention most adults couldn't manage. One night, Evelyn found them in the library, Lily asleep against Nathaniel's shoulder while he read aloud from some book about elephants in India. He looked up when she entered, put a finger to his lips. Together, they carried Lily to bed, tucked her in with her favorite stuffed elephant, made sure the nightlight was on. In the hallway, Nathaniel paused. "She's getting attached to you, to this life." "I know. It's going to hurt her when it ends." "I know that too." He looked at her in the dim hallway light. "Does that bother you?" "More than it should," Evelyn admitted. "But I don't know how to stop it. She's a kid. She doesn't understand temporary." "Neither do you, apparently." The word should have been an accusation. Instead, they sounded almost sad. "Maybe I don't," Evelyn said quietly. "Maybe I'm terrible at keeping distance from things I'm supposed to keep distance from. That's dangerous." "Yeah, I'm starting to figure that out." They stood there, this fake married couple, both pretending they weren't starting to forget which parts were real. The night of the gala arrived with perfect spring weather and an expensive venue that screamed old money. Evelyn wore a dress Rosa had helped her pick out, emerald green, elegant without trying too hard. She felt like an imposter playing dress-up, but the reflection in the mirror suggested otherwise. Nathaniel emerged from his room in a tuxedo that fit like it was made for him, which it probably was. "You clean up nice," Evelyn said. "So do you." They rode to the venue in silence, both preparing for different versions of performance. The ballroom was everything Evelyn expected. Crystal chandeliers, champagne flowing, people in designer clothes making small talk about big money. Marcus Webb spotted them immediately. "Evelyn," he said, smooth as ever, "and this must be your husband. We haven't had the pleasure." "Nathaniel Cross," Nathaniel said, shaking Webb's hand with exactly the right amount of pressure. "Cross. Interesting. I don't recall seeing that name in our files. I keep a low profile." "Clearly." Webb's smile didn't reach his eyes. "What is it you do, Mr. Cross?" "I fix things." "How vague." Evelyn felt tension radiating off Nathaniel, carefully controlled but present. "Nathaniel prefers his privacy," she said lightly. "Some of us don't need to broadcast our entire lives." Webb's expression flickered. "Of course. Privacy is valuable, though sometimes secrets become problematic." "Is that a threat, Marcus?" "Observation. There's a difference." He walked away, leaving them with the uncomfortable feeling of having been assessed and found wanting. "He knows something," Nathaniel said quietly. "He's fishing, trying to rattle us. Maybe." But Nathaniel looked troubled. The evening progressed. Evelyn made small talk with board members, introduced Nathaniel as needed, played the role of successful COO with devoted husband. Nathaniel was surprisingly good at it. He knew how to move in these circles, what to say and when to stay quiet. Several people seemed to recognize him, or thought they did, but couldn't quite place where from. "You were someone," Evelyn said during a quiet moment. "Before. Someone important." "I was someone who thought being important mattered. I learned better." "Did you?" He looked at her. "Ask me in 18 months. The DJ started playing something slow. Couples moved onto the dance floor. "We should probably—" Evelyn gestured toward the dancing. "I don't dance." "Come on, one dance, for appearances." Nathaniel sighed but let her lead him onto the floor. His hand settled at her waist, careful and precise. They moved in time with the music, not quite touching except where necessary. "You're better at this than you pretended," Evelyn said. "Lots of practice. Before you died." "Before I woke up." The cryptic answer was very him. Evelyn let it go, focused on not stepping on his feet. From across the room, Marcus Webb watched them with an expression that made her skin crawl. "He's planning something," she murmured. "I know." "Should we be worried?" "We should be ready." The music swelled. Other couples danced around them, lost in their own worlds. And for a moment, Evelyn let herself imagine this was real, that they were actually a couple, not two people playing roles in an elaborate production. Then the song ended. Nathaniel stepped back, the distance returning. "We've been here long enough," he said. "We can leave." They were heading toward the exit when Marcus Webb intercepted them. "Leaving so soon? The night's just getting started." "Early morning tomorrow," Evelyn said. "Of course, always working. That's admirable." Webb turned to Nathaniel. "Though I am curious, Mr. Cross, where did you say you were from?" "I didn't." "Right, privacy. I respect that." Webb smiled. "Though I have to admit you look familiar, like I've seen you somewhere before." Nathaniel's expression remained neutral. "I have one of those faces." "Perhaps. Or perhaps—" Webb pulled out his phone, tapped the screen. "Perhaps you look familiar because 3 years ago you were all over the financial news. Tech Air, tragic yacht explosion." He turned the phone around. The same Financial Times article Nathaniel had shown Evelyn that first night. "Of course, that Nathaniel Cross is dead," Webb continued. "So you couldn't possibly be him. That would be, what's the word? Fraud." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Evelyn's mind raced. This was it, the moment Webb had been building toward. But Nathaniel just laughed, actually laughed, warm and genuine. "That's creative, I'll give you that. But no, I'm not a dead billionaire." He glanced at the photo. Though the resemblance is flattering, that guy was in much better shape. Webb's smile faltered slightly. "You're saying you're not—" "I'm saying I'm a mechanic from Queens who married a woman way out of his league. If that disappoints you, I apologize." "A mechanic, living in an Upper East Side penthouse. My wife's successful. We manage." "I'm sure you do." Webb put his phone away. "Still, it's quite a coincidence. The resemblance, the name. Cross is a common name, and apparently I have a doppelganger who had terrible luck with boats." Nathaniel took Evelyn's arm. "Now, if you'll excuse us, we really should be going." They made it to the car before Evelyn let out the breath she'd been holding. "He knows," she said. "He suspects. It's different." "Is it?" "He just accused you of being a dead man." And I denied it, convincingly. Nathaniel loosened his tie. "He can't prove anything without looking insane." "But he'll keep digging. Let him. He won't find anything. I made sure of that 3 years ago." The car pulled into traffic. Manhattan lights blurred past the windows. "This is getting dangerous," Evelyn said quietly. "Maybe we should—" "Should what? End the arrangement? You want to walk away from everything you've built?" "I want to not get caught in the crossfire of whatever war you're fighting." Nathaniel turned to look at her. "You were in the crossfire the moment you signed that contract. You just didn't know it yet." The words settled over her like a shroud. Back at the penthouse, they found Rosa waiting up. "Everything okay?" she asked, taking one look at their faces. "Fine," Evelyn lied. "Just tired." After Rosa left, Evelyn poured herself a drink. Nathaniel disappeared into his office. She should have gone to bed, pretended tonight hadn't happened. Instead, she followed him. He was at his computer, fingers flying across the keyboard, pulling up files and data streams. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Making sure Webb can't prove anything, reinforcing the cover story, checking for leaks." "Nathaniel, I warned you this could get complicated, that staying close to me had risks." "I know, I just—" She stopped, trying to find words. "I just didn't think it would feel like this." "Like what?" "Like I actually have something to lose." He looked at her then, really looked, and something in his expression cracked. "You don't," he said quietly. "Whatever you think you have here, it's temporary. Don't forget that." Too late. The admission hung between them. Nathaniel stood, walked to the window. His reflection in the glass looked tired. "This was supposed to be simple," he said. "A transaction, clean edges, clear outcomes." "Yeah, it was." "So what happened?" Evelyn joined him at the window. The city sprawled below them, full of people living real lives in real homes with real families. "We happened," she said. "You and me and Lily, pretending turned into something else when we weren't paying attention. That's the problem with pretending. Eventually you forget what's real." "So what do we do?" Nathaniel turned to face her. They were close now, closer than they'd been since that dance at the gala. "We remember the rules," he said. "We keep our distance. We don't let this become more than it is." And what is it? A business arrangement. Right. Evelyn stepped back. Business. She went to her room, closed the door, and sat on her expensive bed in her impossible penthouse, trying to remember when she'd stopped thinking of Nathaniel as a stranger and started thinking of him as something dangerous and different. Tomorrow, Webb would keep digging. Tomorrow, the corporate war would continue. But tonight, Evelyn lay awake knowing she'd crossed a line she couldn't uncross. She cared about Lily, about this life, about the man down the hall who was probably also awake, also pretending he didn't feel the shift happening between them. And caring, in this arrangement, was the most dangerous thing she could do. The week after the gala felt like waiting for a bomb to detonate. Webb didn't make another move, which somehow made it worse. Evelyn caught him watching her in meetings, that calculating expression on his face, like he was working through a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. At home, Nathaniel became even more careful. He installed new security cameras, claimed they were standard for the building, but Evelyn knew better. She caught him checking his phone at odd hours, tension in his shoulders that hadn't been there before. "You're scared," she said one night, finding him on the balcony at 2 a.m. "I'm cautious. There's a difference." "Is there?" He didn't answer, just stared out at the city like it held answers he couldn't find. Lily noticed the shift too. Kids always did. "Is Daddy mad at us?" she asked Evelyn during breakfast one morning while Nathaniel was locked in his office. "No, sweetie. He's just busy with work stuff." "He's always busy now." Lily pushed her eggs around her plate. "And he doesn't smile anymore." Evelyn's chest tightened. "Sometimes grown-ups have a lot on their minds." "Is it because of the bad people?" The question landed like ice water. "What bad people?" "The ones Daddy talks to Rosa about when they think I'm not listening." Lily looked up with those two serious eyes. "Are the bad people coming back?" Evelyn pulled her close. "Nothing bad is going to happen to you. Your daddy won't let it, and neither will I." "Promise?" "Promise." But making promises about things she couldn't control was dangerous territory, and Evelyn knew it. That afternoon, Jennifer knocked on Evelyn's office door with an expression that meant trouble. "Ms. Hart, we have a situation. The SEC just contacted legal. They're opening an inquiry into the Reeves partnership." "What?" Evelyn looked up from the contract she'd been reviewing. "On what grounds?" "They're claiming potential conflicts of interest, saying the deal was pushed through too quickly without proper vetting." Jennifer handed over a folder. "It's being spearheaded by Marcus Webb's brother-in-law, who happens to work at the SEC." Of course it was. Because Marcus Webb didn't fight fair when he was cornered. Evelyn spent the next 3 hours with the legal team, going over every detail of the Reeves deal. Everything was clean. She'd made sure of that. But SEC inquiries had a way of finding problems even where none existed. She called Nathaniel from the car. "Webb's escalating. He got someone at the SEC to open an investigation." Silence on the other end. Then, "Into the Reeves deal?" "Yeah, they're calling it conflicts of interest." "Because Catherine knew me. Because I connected you." His voice was flat. "This is my fault. It's Webb being desperate. We knew he'd fight back. Not like this. If they dig too deep, if they start looking into how you got those connections, then we deal with it together. Evelyn, I'm not backing down, and I'm not letting you disappear because Webb is playing dirty." Another long silence. "Come home. We need to talk." The drive back to the penthouse felt like it took hours instead of 20 minutes. Evelyn's mind ran through scenarios, each worse than the last. SEC investigations could destroy careers. If they connected her to Nathaniel's real identity, if they exposed the truth about the marriage arrangement, she found him in his office with 3 laptops open, files scattered across the desk. He looked like he hadn't slept. "We have options," he said without preamble. "None of them are good. Tell me. Option 1. You cooperate fully with the SEC. Hand over everything. The deal is clean, so they'll eventually clear you. But the process takes months. Your reputation takes a hit. Webb uses the investigation to undermine your position with the board. And option 2? We make Webb back off. Convince him the investigation hurts him more than it hurts you." "How?" Nathaniel pulled up a file on one of the laptops. Financial records, email chains, documents that made Evelyn's eyes widen. "Where did you get this?"
I still have resources, people who owe me favors. He scrolled through pages of evidence. Webb's been embezzling from Meridian for 2 years, small amounts, carefully hidden. But it's there. You've been investigating him? I investigate everyone who gets close to you, to us. No apology in his tone, just fact. If we leak this to the right people, Webb goes down. The SEC investigation disappears. Evelyn stared at the screen. That's blackmail.
That's survival. It's also illegal. So is embezzlement. So is using your position to launch fraudulent investigations. Nathaniel looked at her. You want to play by rules that Webb already broke? Be my guest. But don't expect to win. The cynicism in his voice shouldn't have surprised her. This was who he was. Someone who'd learned that power mattered more than principles, that winning was all that counted. There has to be another way, Evelyn said. There isn't. Not one that keeps you safe and keeps our cover intact. So what, we just destroy him? Ruin his career? He's trying to do the same to you. Why is his career worth more than yours? It wasn't, but something about this felt wrong, like they were crossing a line that couldn't be uncrossed. I need time to think, Evelyn said. We don't have time. The SEC inquiry moves forward tomorrow unless we stop it. Then I'll handle it my way. Evelyn, my way, Nathaniel? Not everything has to be scorched earth. She left his office before he could argue further. That night she barely slept. By morning, she'd made a decision. Instead of going to the office, Evelyn went to Marcus Webb's apartment, showed up at 7 a.m. and rang the bell until he answered. He opened the door in a bathrobe, coffee in hand, looking genuinely surprised. Evelyn, this is unexpected. We need to talk, now. Don't! Evelyn's voice was sharp. Your brother-in-law works at the SEC. The inquiry was opened 48 hours after I embarrassed you at the board meeting. We both know what this is. Webb's expression didn't change. Even if that were true, why would I stop it? Because I have evidence of your embezzlement. 2 years of carefully hidden transactions. Enough to put you in prison. His coffee cup paused halfway to his mouth. That's a serious accusation. Evelyn thought about Lily asking if the bad people were coming back. About Nathaniel standing on the balcony at 2 a.m., carrying weight that would crush most people. About a fake marriage that had stopped feeling fake somewhere along the way. Someone I care about needs this to end quietly, she said. That's reason enough. Webb studied her face. Your mysterious husband, the one who looks like a dead billionaire and moves like he's used to power. What's his real story? Not your business. Everything that affects Meridian is my business. And if he's pulling strings behind the scenes, he's not. This is me. My choice. My fight. Evelyn stood. You have until end of business today. Make the investigation go away, or I make you go away. Your call. She left before he could respond. Walking out of that building, Evelyn's hands were shaking. She'd just threatened a senior executive with blackmail. Used illegally obtained evidence. Crossed every ethical line she'd sworn not to cross. But when her phone rang and Lily's face popped up, a photo from last week, chocolate ice cream all over her grin, Evelyn knew she'd do it again. Some things were worth fighting dirty for. By 3 p.m., the SEC inquiry was quietly withdrawn. No explanation given. Jennifer brought her the news with obvious relief. Whatever you did, it worked, she said. We're clear. Good. Let's get back to actual work. Evelyn made it through the rest of the day on autopilot. Meetings, emails, normal corporate warfare. By the time she got home, exhaustion had settled into her bones. She found Nathaniel in the kitchen with Lily, making dinner. Some kind of stir-fry that smelled incredible. Ms. Evelyn! Lily ran over, nearly knocking her down with enthusiasm. Guess what? Daddy's making my favorite, and he said we can watch a movie after dinner, and I get to pick. That sounds perfect, sweetie. Nathaniel looked up from the stove. Their eyes met across the kitchen. He knew. She could see it in his expression. The question, the concern, the careful distance he maintained even when he wanted to close it. After dinner, after the movie, something animated with singing animals that Lily loved, after bedtime stories and checking for monsters and making sure the nightlight worked, Evelyn finally had her confrontation. Nathaniel was waiting in his office. You went to Webb, he said. Not a question. I did. And? And I used your evidence to make him back down. The investigation's over. Nathaniel was quiet for a long moment. I told you I'd handle it. No, you told me what you thought we should do. I made my own choice. By doing exactly what I suggested. By handling it myself. There's a difference. Evelyn sat down. I'm not some piece on your chessboard, Nathaniel. I don't need you orchestrating everything. I was trying to protect you. I don't need protection. I need partnership, or at least honesty about what we're doing here. We're surviving. That's what we're doing. Are we? Because it feels like we're building something real, and you keep pretending we're not. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. This isn't real. It's a cover story that got complicated. When are you going to stop lying to yourself? When are you going to remember this has an expiration date? The words hung between them like broken glass. Evelyn stood. You know what? You're right. This is temporary. In a year, maybe less, I'll be gone. You and Lily will disappear to wherever you go next, and we'll all pretend this never happened. Evelyn, I'm tired, Nathaniel. I'm going to bed. She made it to her room before the tears came. Stupid, crying over a fake marriage to a man who'd made it clear from day one that nothing about this was permanent. But knowing something intellectually and feeling it emotionally were different things. The next 2 weeks passed in careful politeness. Nathaniel maintained his distance. Evelyn threw herself into work. They existed in the same space like ghosts haunting the same house. Lily noticed, of course. Why don't you and Daddy talk anymore? She asked one night while Evelyn was helping her brush her teeth. We talk, sweetie. Not like before. Now you're both sad and quiet. Adults are complicated sometimes. That's what Rosa says. But I think you're both just being silly. Out of the mouths of children. Maybe we are, Evelyn admitted. You should tell him you're not really mad. Daddy doesn't know when people aren't really mad. He just thinks they are, and then he gets more quiet. Evelyn looked at this impossibly perceptive 4-year-old. How'd you get so smart? I pay attention. Lily rinsed her mouth. Also, Daddy reads me lots of books, and books make you smart. That night, Evelyn lay awake thinking about what Lily had said. About Nathaniel getting quiet when he thought people were angry. About a man who'd learned to control everything except his own fear of losing what mattered. She was still awake at midnight when the alarms went off. Loud, piercing, the kind of sound that meant something was very wrong. Evelyn was out of bed in seconds, running toward Lily's room. Nathaniel was already there, scooping his daughter out of bed. His face was calm, but his movements were sharp, efficient. What's happening? Evelyn asked. Get dressed. We need to move. Now. Nathaniel. Now, Evelyn. The tone in his voice made her obey without question. She ran back to her room, threw on jeans and a sweatshirt, grabbed her phone. When she came back, Nathaniel had Lily bundled in a blanket, the little girl half asleep and confused. Daddy? What's wrong? Nothing, baby girl. We're just going on an adventure. In the middle of the night? The best adventures happen at night. Rosa appeared from the hallway, fully dressed like she'd been expecting this. The car's ready downstairs, back entrance. Good, let's move. They took the service elevator, emerged into an underground parking garage Evelyn didn't know existed. A black SUV waited, engine running, driver she didn't recognize behind the wheel. Get in, Nathaniel said. Evelyn climbed in beside Lily while Nathaniel took the front seat. Rosa got in on Lily's other side. The SUV peeled out of the garage before the doors even closed. Someone want to tell me what the hell is going on? Evelyn demanded. Nathaniel was on his phone, typing rapidly. Security breach. Someone tried to access the penthouse. Tried? The new cameras caught them. They're gone now, but we can't stay there, not tonight. Who was it? I don't know yet. Lily was fully awake now, picking up on the tension. Daddy, are we safe? Yes, baby, always. He reached back, squeezed her hand. We're just being extra careful. They drove in silence through empty Manhattan streets. Evelyn watched the city slide past, her mind racing. This was real. The danger Nathaniel had been preparing for, the threat he'd been tracking, it wasn't paranoia, it was actually happening. The SUV pulled into another building, this one in Tribeca. Different elevator, different apartment, smaller than the penthouse but just as secure. Safe house, Nathaniel explained, carrying Lily inside. I maintained 3 of them, just in case. Of course he did. The apartment was furnished but sterile. No personal touches, no signs of life, just a place to hide when hiding became necessary. Nathaniel put Lily down on the couch, tucked the blanket around her. Try to sleep, sweetheart. We'll sort everything out in the morning. I don't want to sleep. I'm scared. I know, but I'm right here. Rosa's here. Ms. Evelyn's here. Nothing's going to happen to you. Promise? Promise. It took another hour to get Lily settled. Rosa stayed with her while Nathaniel pulled Evelyn into what passed for a kitchen. Talk, Evelyn said. Now. All of it. No more secrets. Nathaniel ran a hand through his hair. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked rattled. The people who killed Grace, they've been quiet for 3 years. I thought maybe they'd moved on, found other targets. But someone knew where we were. Someone got past security that should have been impenetrable. The men at the penthouse, the ones who came to talk to you. They were warning me, said there was chatter, that someone was asking questions about Nathaniel Cross. I thought I'd handled it, covered the trails. He looked at her. I was wrong. So what now? Now we figure out who's hunting us and why they're doing it now, after all this time. Could it be Webb? He was digging into your background. Webb's a corporate climber, not a killer. This is something else. The way he said it made Evelyn's blood run cold. Something worse. Yeah, something worse. They sat in the sterile kitchen of the safe house while Lily slept in the other room, guarded by Rosa, who apparently had skills beyond childcare. You need to leave, Nathaniel said quietly. Take the money, keep the job, but distance yourself from this. From me, before it's too late. No. Evelyn, I said no. You don't get to push me away because things got dangerous. That's not how this works. This isn't a partnership. It's a business arrangement that's putting you in the crosshairs of people who don't hesitate to kill. Then we deal with it together. She met his eyes. I'm not abandoning Lily, and I'm not abandoning you. You barely know me. I know enough. I know you'd die before you let anything happen to your daughter. I know you carry guilt that's eating you alive. I know you're terrified that caring about anyone makes them a target. Evelyn leaned forward. And I know that pretending this is just business stopped working about 2 months ago. Nathaniel's expression cracked. Just for a second, she saw beneath the control to the fear and exhaustion underneath. If something happens to you because of me, it won't. You can't know that. Neither can you, but we're still here, still fighting, so stop trying to protect me by pushing me away and let me actually help. They stared at each other across the kitchen table. Outside, the city hummed with life that felt very far away. I don't know how to do this, Nathaniel said finally. Let someone in. Trust that they won't leave? Won't die? Won't break? Evelyn reached across the table, took his hand. You can't control everything. And trying to is killing you. His fingers tightened around hers. Grace used to say that. She was right. She also died because I missed something. Because I got comfortable, stopped being vigilant. His voice was rough. I won't make that mistake again. Being vigilant is different from being alone. You have people who want to help. Rosa, me, let us. For a long moment, Nathaniel didn't respond. Then, so quietly, she almost missed it. I don't want to lose you too. The admission hit her like a physical blow. You won't, she whispered. You don't know that. Then we make sure of it, together. They sat in the kitchen holding hands while the city woke up outside, and something shifted between them. The walls Nathaniel had built so carefully started showing cracks, and maybe, just maybe, that was the first step toward something real. By dawn, Nathaniel had a plan. He'd made calls, pulled strings, activated whatever network he'd maintained during his 3 years of hiding. People Evelyn didn't know existed moved in shadows she couldn't see. We're not running, he announced over breakfast. Running never works. They'll just find us again. So what's the alternative? Evelyn asked. We draw them out. Force them to make a move before they're ready. That sounds incredibly dangerous. It is. But so is waiting for them to hit us when we're not expecting it. Rosa was packing Lily's things, getting ready to take her somewhere safe. The little girl clung to Nathaniel. I don't want to go without you, she said, tears on her cheeks. I know, baby girl, but Rosa's going to take you somewhere fun, like a vacation. I don't want a vacation. I want you. Nathaniel knelt down eye level with his daughter. Remember what I told you about being brave?
Being brave means being scared, but doing the hard thing anyway. That's right. And right now, the brave thing is trusting Daddy to keep you safe. Can you do that? Lily nodded, but she was crying. Evelyn felt her own tears threatening. Watching this goodbye was breaking something inside her. I'll come see you soon, she told Lily, and we'll bring your elephants and read all your favorite books. Promise? Promise.
They watched Rosa drive away with Lily, both knowing promises were fragile things when people were hunting you. Where did she take her? Evelyn asked. Upstate. Private property, off the grid. No one knows about it except Rosa and me. And now me. Nathaniel looked at her. Yeah. And now you. The weight of that trust settled over Evelyn like a cloak. He'd shown her the last piece of his defense, the final place he'd run if everything else failed. That meant something. So what's the plan? She asked. We go back to normal. You go to work, I go to the shop. We act like nothing's wrong. While actually, we're bait. Evelyn absorbed this. You want to use us to draw them out. I want to control the battlefield. Right now they have the advantage because we don't know who they are or when they'll strike. If we make ourselves visible, predictable, they'll make a move. And when they do, we'll be ready. With what? Your mysterious security team? With people who've been protecting me for 3 years, people who know how to handle this kind of threat. And me? What's my role in this insane plan? Nathaniel's expression was serious. Your role is staying alive, staying visible, so they think the plan is working and trusting me to keep you safe. I do trust you. Then prove it. Go to work tomorrow like nothing's wrong. I'll handle the rest. Evelyn wanted to argue, to demand more details, more control, more certainty. But she'd learned something in the last few months. Sometimes trust meant letting go, letting someone else carry the weight. Okay, she said, I'll play bait, but if this goes wrong, it won't. If it does, Nathaniel, if something happens... She stopped, trying to find words. Take care of Lily. Make sure she knows She knows. She's known since the day you helped her paint that ridiculous elephant castle. It wasn't ridiculous. It was art. It was 90% glitter and structural nightmare. All the best art is... They smiled at each other, brief and fragile. Then Nathaniel's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, and his expression went cold. They just made contact, he said. Left a message at the penthouse. What kind of message? He turned the phone so she could see the photo. Someone had been inside their home, had stood in Lily's bedroom, had left a single playing card on her pillow. The ace of spades. What does it mean? Evelyn asked, though she had a sinking feeling she knew. It's a calling card. A signature. Nathaniel's voice was flat. The same one they left on Grace's body after they killed her. The temperature in the room dropped. They're telling us they can get to Lily, Evelyn whispered. They're trying to, but they won't, because this time I'm not playing defense. Nathaniel pocketed his phone. This time, I'm going to war. And looking at him, at the cold fury in his eyes, the absolute certainty in his posture, Evelyn believed him. The mechanic from Queens was gone. The dead billionaire had just come back to life. And whoever was hunting them was about to learn why Nathaniel Cross had been feared in the first place. The next morning, Evelyn went to work like Nathaniel had instructed. Walked through the Meridian building with her head high, smiled at colleagues, attended meetings like her world hadn't just been turned inside out. But her hand shook when she poured coffee, and she jumped every time her office door opened. Jennifer noticed. Everything okay, Ms. Hart? Fine, just tired. You look like you haven't slept. Long night. Evelyn forced a smile. What's on the agenda? They worked through the morning schedule, but Evelyn's mind was elsewhere. On Lily, hidden away somewhere upstate. On Nathaniel, who'd left the safe house before dawn without saying where he was going. On the ace of spades that meant someone had stood in a 4-year-old's bedroom with murder on their mind. Around 11, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered cautiously. Hello.
Ms. Hart. The voice was male, smooth, unfamiliar. We haven't been properly introduced. My name is Vincent Corso. Evelyn's blood went cold. I don't know who you are, but I know you.
The ambitious woman from nowhere who married a dead man. Quite the story. I'm hanging up. I wouldn't, not if you value your husband's life or that sweet little girl's. Evelyn's hand tightened on the phone. What do you want? A meeting, just you and me. Tonight, 8 p.m. There's a warehouse on the waterfront in Red Hook. Come alone and we'll discuss terms. Terms for what? For letting you all live. Corso's voice was pleasant, conversational. Your husband has something I want. Information he took when he faked his death. You're going to convince him to hand it over. And if I don't come, then tomorrow morning someone finds a little girl's body, and the morning after that they find yours, and eventually they find his, but not before he watches everyone he loves die first. The line went dead. Evelyn sat at her desk, trying to breathe, trying to think through the panic. She called Nathaniel. It rang 4 times before he answered. Someone just called me, she said. Vincent Corso. He wants to meet tonight. Silence. Then, what did you tell him? Nothing. He hung up before I could respond. Nathaniel, he threatened Lily. He knows where... He doesn't know anything. He's fishing, trying to scare you into making a mistake. But there was tension in Nathaniel's voice. What else did he say? That you have information he wants. Something you took when you faked your death. Yeah, I do. What information? Evidence that could destroy some very powerful people. I kept it as insurance in case they came after me. Nathaniel paused. Looks like they're done waiting. He wants me to meet him at 8, alone. Absolutely not. I didn't say I was going to. Good, because you're not. I'll handle Corso. How? By giving him what he wants, on my terms, not his. Evelyn wanted to argue, but she'd learned when Nathaniel used that tone. He'd already made up his mind. What do you need me to do? She asked instead. Go home. Wait for me. Don't go anywhere alone. Don't talk to anyone you don't trust completely. His voice softened slightly. And Evelyn? Thank you for calling me first. Who else would I call? 6 months ago, you would have tried to handle this yourself. He was right. 6 months ago, she'd been fighting alone, trusting no one, convinced that asking for help was weakness. Somewhere along the way, that had changed. 6 months ago, I didn't have anyone worth calling, she said quietly. The silence on the other end felt heavy. Then, I'll see you tonight. And Evelyn, this ends today, one way or another. The line went dead before she could respond. Evelyn made it through the rest of the day on autopilot. When 5 o'clock came, she grabbed her things and headed for the elevator. Marcus Webb caught her in the lobby. Leaving early? He fell into step beside her. That's not like you. Family emergency. Ah, yes, your mysterious family. Webb smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. You know, I've been thinking about our conversation, about your husband and his convenient resemblance to a dead man. Marcus, I really don't have time. What if I told you I know the truth? What if I told you I've been doing some digging and I found some very interesting connections? Evelyn stopped walking. What do you want? Same thing I've always wanted. Respect, recognition, the position I've earned. Webb moved closer. But I'm willing to negotiate. You resign as COO, recommend me as your replacement, and I forget everything I know about Nathaniel Cross. That's blackmail. That's business. You of all people should understand. Evelyn looked at this man who'd spent months trying to destroy her, who'd launched investigations and spread rumors and done everything in his power to make her fail. And she realized something. He was small, petty, dangerous in his own way, but nothing compared to the real threats circling outside. You know what, Marcus? Do your worst. Expose whatever you think you know, because right now I have bigger problems than you. She walked away, leaving him standing in the lobby with his mouth open. Outside, the SUV was waiting. Same driver from last night, same careful efficiency. The ride back to the safe house felt eternal. When they finally arrived, Evelyn found Nathaniel in the living room with 4 other people. 3 men and 1 woman, all dressed in tactical gear that screamed military background. They looked up when she entered, assessing her with the same flat expression Nathaniel wore when he was working. This is Evelyn, Nathaniel said. Evelyn, this is my team. They've been watching the penthouse, tracking Corso's movements, preparing for tonight. Tonight? Evelyn looked at him. I thought you said I wasn't going to that meeting. You're not, I am, but Corso doesn't know that yet.
One of the men, tall, dark-skinned, with a scar across his left eyebrow, spoke up. The warehouse is a trap. Classic setup. He's expecting you to come alone so he can grab you, use you as leverage against Cross. So we spring the trap first, said the woman, short blonde hair, ice blue eyes. Go in hard, extract what we need, get out clean. And what about the information he wants? Evelyn asked. The evidence you took? Nathaniel pulled out a flash drive from his pocket. It's all here. Names, dates, financial transactions, proof that a consortium of tech investors conspired to eliminate competition through assassination. Grace died because I found out about it, because I was planning to expose them. But you didn't. I couldn't. Not without putting Lily at risk. So I took the evidence, faked my death, and disappeared. Let them think they'd won. Why come after you now? Evelyn was trying to piece it together. If they think you're dead, because someone talked. Someone realized I'm still alive and told Corso. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. My guess, your friend Marcus Webb, he's been digging, asking questions. Probably reached out to the wrong people trying to confirm his suspicions. Webb, who'd just tried to blackmail her in the lobby, who'd been investigating Nathaniel for weeks. He doesn't know what he's done, Evelyn whispered. No, he just knows he was trying to hurt you. The rest is collateral damage. The scarred man checked his watch. We move in 2 hours. Cross, you sure about this? I'm sure. Corso wants a meeting. He'll get one. Just not the one he's expecting. They spent the next hour going over the plan. It was military precise, accounting for every variable. The team moved with practiced efficiency, checking weapons and equipment with the kind of competence that came from years of working together. How long have they been protecting you? Evelyn asked Nathaniel during a quiet moment. Since before Grace died. They were private security for my company. When everything went south, they helped me disappear. Been watching my back ever since. That's expensive. How do you afford— I didn't lose everything when I faked my death, Evelyn. I just made it look like I did. He met her eyes. The mechanic thing was cover, but the money? That's still there. Hidden, carefully managed, but there. So you're still a billionaire. On paper? No. In reality? Yeah. Turns out dying is great for tax purposes. Despite everything, Evelyn almost laughed. You're insane. Probably, but I'm also the only thing standing between Corso and my daughter. So insane works. At 7:30, they loaded into 2 vehicles. Nathaniel rode with his team in the lead SUV. Evelyn followed in the second with the blonde woman who'd introduced herself as Alex driving. You care about him, Alex said. Not a question. Is it that obvious? Only to people who know what to look for. Cross doesn't let people in. Hasn't since Grace. So if he's letting you close enough to be part of this, you matter. We're married. It's complicated. Marriage is always complicated. Doesn't make it less real. They drove through Brooklyn in silence, watching the sun set over the city. Somewhere out there, Lily was safe. Evelyn had to believe that. The warehouse district in Red Hook was exactly as depressing as it sounded. Abandoned buildings, broken streetlights. The kind of place where bad things happen and nobody asked questions. The team parked 2 blocks away, approached on foot. Nathaniel moved with the same precision Evelyn had seen in his kitchen, his office, his everyday life. But now she understood where it came from. This was who he'd been before the mechanic cover. Someone who operated in shadows and made hard choices. The warehouse was massive, mostly empty, perfect for an ambush. They entered through a side door, spread out in formation. Evelyn stayed back with Alex, both of them armed with handguns that felt heavy and wrong in her grip. You know how to use that? Alex whispered. I've been to a range twice. Then keep it pointed at the ground unless you see a clear target. And if you shoot, aim for center mass. Evelyn's hands were shaking. This was real, actually happening, not corporate warfare or business deals, but real violence, with real consequences. Inside the warehouse, Vincent Corso was waiting. He stood in the center of the space, flanked by 6 armed men. Middle-aged, expensive suit, the kind of face that looked friendly until you noticed the eyes. Mr. Cross, he said pleasantly, I was expecting your wife. Change of plans. Nathaniel stepped forward, his team fanning out behind him. You wanted to talk? Let's talk. I wanted leverage, but this works too. Corso gestured at his men. You're outnumbered. Your little security team is good, but not good enough to take all of us.
You'd be surprised. Would I? Corso pulled out a phone, showed Nathaniel the screen. One call and the team I have watching your daughter receives different instructions. Very different instructions. Evelyn felt her blood turn to ice. But Nathaniel's expression didn't change. You're bluffing. You don't know where she is. Don't I? Upstate property, registered under Rosa Delgado's maiden name. Quite clever, hiding ownership through multiple shell companies. But not clever enough. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. The first sign of fear Evelyn had seen from him all night. What do you want? He asked.
The evidence. All of it. Every copy. Every backup. And your word that you'll disappear again. Permanently this time. And if I refuse, then everyone you love dies, starting with the girl. For a long moment, nobody moved. The warehouse was silent except for distant traffic sounds. Then Nathaniel did something Evelyn didn't expect. He laughed. You really think you're the first person to threaten my daughter? You think I haven't prepared for this exact scenario?
Your arrogance is going to get people killed. No, your stupidity already did. Nathaniel pulled out his phone, pressed a button. The property you're watching, that's a decoy. Has been for 3 days. Rosa's there with 2 members of my team waiting for exactly this kind of play. Corso's expression flickered. You're lying. Am I? Call them. See what happens. Corso made the call. It rang once. Then a voice Evelyn didn't recognize answered, loud enough for them all to hear. This is FBI Special Agent Morrison. You're calling a phone we seized 30 minutes ago as part of an ongoing investigation. Who is this? Corso's face went white. He ended the call. Surprise, Nathaniel said. While you were planning your ambush, I was springing mine. Your team watching the decoy property? In federal custody. The evidence you wanted? Already in FBI hands, along with testimony detailing every crime you and your consortium committed over the last decade. You can't. I already did. See, the thing about insurance policies, eventually you have to cash them in. Nathaniel's voice was cold. You killed my wife. You threatened my daughter. You came into my home and you expected me to just roll over? Corso's men shifted nervously, hands moving toward weapons. I wouldn't, Alex said from the shadows. Red laser sights appeared on each of Corso's men. You're covered by 3 separate sniper positions. Any of you moves wrong, you're dead before you hit the ground. It was a bluff. Evelyn could tell by the way Alex held herself. But Corso's men didn't know that. It's over, Vincent, Nathaniel said. In about 5 minutes, this place is going to be swarming with federal agents. You can surrender now and maybe cut a deal, or you can try something stupid and end up in a body bag. Your choice. For a long moment, Corso just stared at him. Then, slowly, he raised his hands. You think this ends it? There are others, more powerful than me. They'll keep coming. Let them. I'm done hiding. Nathaniel gestured to his team. Secure them. FBI's 2 minutes out. It happened fast after that. Corso's men surrendered without a fight, probably realizing their boss had led them into a trap. Alex's team zip-tied them with efficient brutality. True to Nathaniel's word, FBI agents swarmed the warehouse 90 seconds later. Someone had been coordinating with them, feeding information. Evelyn found Nathaniel outside, leaning against the SUV, looking exhausted. You okay? She asked. I will be, once I see Lily. Make sure she's really safe. Where is she, actually? Canada. Crossed the border this morning with fake passports. Rosa's with her. He smiled, tired but genuine. The upstate property was always a decoy. I learned a long time ago that the best way to protect something is to make people think they know where it is. You played him. I played everyone, including the FBI. They've wanted that evidence for years. I finally gave it to them in exchange for immunity and protection. Evelyn processed this. So it's really over. The immediate threat? Yeah. But Corso was right about one thing. There are others. Powerful people who aren't going to be happy I testified. So what happens now? Nathaniel looked at her in the dim light from the warehouse. Now we have a choice to make. You and me. What choice? The contract expires in 10 months. You could walk away right now, take everything you've earned, start fresh somewhere Corso's friends can't find you. He paused. Or you could stay. Help me build something real instead of hiding from shadows. Stay as what? Your fake wife? Stay as my actual wife. If you want. The words came out awkward, like he wasn't used to offering things that mattered. I know it's not romantic. I know I'm damaged and paranoid and probably a terrible bet for any kind of future. But Lily loves you. And He trailed off, but Evelyn heard what he wasn't saying. You what? She pushed. I trust you, completely. And trust is harder for me than love ever was. It wasn't a declaration of eternal devotion. It wasn't poetry or grand gestures. But coming from Nathaniel Cross, it was everything. I need to think about it, Evelyn said, not because she didn't know her answer, but because this deserved more than a snap decision in a warehouse parking lot after a hostage situation. Fair enough, Nathaniel pushed off the SUV. Come on, let's go get our daughter. Our daughter, not his daughter, ours. Maybe he'd been thinking about this longer than she realized. They flew to Toronto that night on a private jet that definitely didn't belong to a mechanic. Landed at a small airport, drove to a house on the outskirts of the city. Lily met them at the door, launching herself at Nathaniel with the kind of enthusiasm that nearly knocked him over. Daddy, you came! Of course I came, baby girl. I always come. Ms. Evelyn, Lily grabbed her next. Rosa said we're on an adventure, but I missed you both so much. We missed you too, sweetie. They spent the night in the safe house, another one of Nathaniel's carefully prepared bolt holes, eating takeout and watching Lily show them all the drawings she'd made during her brief exile. Rosa pulled Evelyn aside while Nathaniel was putting Lily to bed. He asked you to stay, she said. Not a question. How did you... I've known that man for 4 years. I can read him. Rosa's expression was serious. So what are you going to say? I don't know yet. Yes, you do. You're just scared of admitting it. Evelyn wanted to argue, but Rosa knew her too well. What if I'm not enough? She asked quietly. What if I can't handle this life, these threats, the constant looking over our shoulders? What if you can? What if you're exactly what they need? Rosa squeezed her arm. That little girl in there? She's had 2 mothers, one who died protecting her, and one who chose to stay even when walking away was easier. Don't discount what that means. Later, after Lily was asleep and Rosa had retired to her room, Evelyn found Nathaniel on the back porch. Can't sleep? He asked. Too much adrenaline. She sat beside him. Plus, I'm trying to figure out if this is actually my life, or if I'm having a very elaborate stress dream. If it helps, I ask myself that question at least twice a week. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the Canadian night sky. I talked to the FBI, Nathaniel said eventually. With the evidence I provided, they're dismantling the entire consortium, arrests happening worldwide over the next week. Corso's facing 25 to life. The others? Similar. So you're really safe now. As safe as anyone can be with that many powerful people angry at them. But yeah, the immediate danger's gone. What about Meridian, the COO position? That's yours to keep, if you want it. The marriage arrangement was legitimate, so there's no fraud. The board doesn't need to know about any of this. And us? What do we tell people about us? Nathaniel turned to look at her. What do you want to tell them? I don't know. What's the truth? The truth is messy. We started as a transaction, became something like friends, and now... He stopped, searching for words. Now I can't imagine doing this without you. Any of it. Raising Lily, building a life, figuring out what comes next. That's not love, Evelyn said softly. No, it's better. It's choice. Love happens to you. Choice is something you make every day. Evelyn thought about that. About the difference between falling and choosing, between being swept away and consciously deciding to stay. I grew up thinking love was supposed to be this big dramatic thing, she said. Fireworks and passion and losing yourself in another person. But maybe real love is quieter than that. Maybe it's choosing to stay when leaving would be easier. Choosing to build something instead of protecting yourself from getting hurt. Is that what you're doing? Choosing to stay? Yeah, I think it is. Nathaniel's hand found hers in the darkness. You sure? Because once you're really in this, there's no going back to the clean contract version. It gets messy, complicated, real. I'm counting on it. Evelyn squeezed his fingers. I've spent my whole life fighting to survive. Maybe it's time I fought for something worth living for instead. Like what? Like this. Us. Lily. A family that doesn't fit any normal definition but works anyway. They sat on the porch until dawn started painting the sky pink and gold. Somewhere inside, Lily was sleeping peacefully, guarded by people who'd die before they let anything happen to her. And Evelyn realized something. She'd come into this arrangement desperate and alone, thinking success meant money and power and titles. But success looked different from here. It looked like a little girl who called her Miss Evelyn and insisted on showing her every drawing. It looked like a damaged man who'd learned to trust again. It looked like choosing each other, day after day, even when it wasn't easy. 2 weeks later, they returned to New York. The penthouse had been thoroughly secured. New systems, new protocols, new everything. Nathaniel had stopped pretending to be just a mechanic. He'd reactivated some of his old business connections, started consulting for tech companies under his real name. Turned out being legally dead for 3 years didn't actually void all your credentials. Evelyn kept her position at Meridian. The partnership she'd built flourished. Within 6 months, she was promoted to CEO, exactly as promised. Marcus Webb resigned quietly after the FBI started asking questions about his connection to Vincent Corso. Nobody at Meridian was sad to see him go. And Lily? Lily started kindergarten at a private school with excellent security. She made friends, joined an art class, developed an extensive knowledge of elephant biology that she shared with anyone who'd listen. One night, about 8 months after the warehouse confrontation, Evelyn was helping Lily with homework when the little girl looked up with those serious dark eyes. "Ms. Evelyn, can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetie." "Are you going to stay forever? Or are you going to leave like Mommy did?" The question landed like a punch. Evelyn set down the colored pencil she'd been holding. "Your mommy didn't leave because she wanted to, Lily. She died trying to protect you." "I know. But people leave, even when they don't mean to." Lily's voice was small. "I don't want you to leave." Evelyn pulled her close. "I'm not going anywhere. I promise." "But the paper daddy had said 2 years. Rosa told me. She said you were only supposed to stay 2 years and then you'd go away." Evelyn made a mental note to have words with Rosa about what conversations happened within Lily's earshot. "That was the original plan," she admitted. "But plans change, people change, and I changed my mind about leaving." "Really? Really? You're stuck with me, kiddo. Sorry." Lily smiled, bright and genuine. "I'm not sorry. I love you, Ms. Evelyn." The words hit Evelyn like a wave. "I love you too, sweetie. So much." "Are you going to marry Daddy for real? Like with a wedding and everything?" "We're already married." But that was the pretend kind. I mean the real kind, where people wear fancy clothes and eat cake. From the doorway, Nathaniel's voice. "That's a good question. Are we?" Evelyn looked up to find him leaning against the frame, watching them with an expression that was almost soft. "Are we what?" she asked. "Getting married for real, with fancy clothes and cake." He walked into the room. "Because I've been thinking, the contract's up in 2 months, and I'd like to renew it, under different terms." "What kind of terms?" "The permanent kind. No end date, no business arrangement, just us." Lily bounced excitedly. "Say yes, say yes, say yes." Evelyn looked at this man who'd been a stranger 6 months ago, who'd taught her that strength wasn't about doing everything alone, that family wasn't always blood, that sometimes the best things in life came from the messiest, most complicated situations. "Yes," she said. Nathaniel smiled, actually smiled, wide and genuine. "Yeah? Yeah, but I'm not wearing a poofy dress, and we're not doing some massive society wedding. Courthouse again? With Lily and Rosa this time. And maybe your security team. They've earned it. Deal." They had the ceremony 3 weeks later. Small, simple, nothing like the first courthouse wedding. This time Lily was there in a purple dress with elephants on it. Rosa cried. The security team stood awkwardly in suits and tried to look emotional. And when the judge asked if they took each other, both Evelyn and Nathaniel said, "I do," like they meant it. Because this time, they did. The reception was pizza in the penthouse library. Lily's choice. They ate on the floor surrounded by books and played a game where everyone had to share their favorite memory from the last year. Lily's was the elephant castle. Rosa's was watching them become a real family. The security team's memories were mostly classified. Nathaniel's was the night Evelyn had shown up at his workshop, all nervous determination and hidden fear, and he'd known somehow that she was going to change everything. Evelyn's was harder to choose. There were so many, But finally, she settled on a quiet morning 3 months ago, waking up to Lily climbing into bed between her and Nathaniel, chattering about dreams and elephants and what they should have for breakfast. "That was the moment I knew I was home," she said. "Not in this apartment or this city, but with you two. That was home." Later, after Lily was asleep and Rosa had gone to her room and the security team had returned to their various posts, Evelyn and Nathaniel sat on their balcony overlooking the city. "You know, when I signed that contract," Evelyn said, "I thought I was trading 2 years for a career, selling a piece of my life for success. And now? Now I know I wasn't selling anything. I was buying into something I didn't know I needed. A family. A partner. A life that's messy and complicated and nothing like what I planned. Regret it? Not even a little bit." Nathaniel took her hand. "I spent 3 years hiding, convinced that caring about anyone made them a target, that the safest thing I could do was stay alone." "What changed?" "You did. You walked into that garage and looked at me like you saw past all the bullshit, like you knew I was more than the role I was playing." He turned to face her. "And then you stayed, even when it got dangerous, even when walking away would have been smarter. Walking away from you two would have been the stupidest thing I ever did." "You sure about that? Because this life isn't safe. There will always be threats, always be people who want to hurt us because of who I used to be. Then we deal with them. Together. As a family." Evelyn smiled. "You taught me that being strong doesn't mean facing things alone. It means knowing when to let people help carry the weight." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city lights. Somewhere in that massive sprawl of humanity, there were people fighting the same battles Evelyn had fought. Desperate, alone, convinced that success meant doing it all yourself. And she wanted to tell them what she'd learned, that sometimes the best things in life came from admitting you needed help. That family wasn't always blood, that strength came in many forms, and one of the strongest was knowing when to let someone else share the burden. She'd walked into this arrangement broken and desperate, thinking money would fix everything. What she'd found instead was something money couldn't buy. A daughter who loved her, a partner who trusted her, a life that was messy and complicated and absolutely nothing like she'd planned. And it was perfect. Not in a fairy tale way, not in the smooth, easy way corporate success stories were written, but perfect in the way real things are perfect, flawed and difficult and worth fighting for. "What are you thinking about?" Nathaniel asked. "How far we've come, how different everything is from that first courthouse wedding. Different good or different bad? Different real, that's the important part." Inside, Lily would wake up tomorrow morning and drag them both to the kitchen for breakfast. She'd chatter about elephants and school and whatever new thing had captured her endless curiosity. Rosa would make eggs with the perfect cheese ratio. The security team would check perimeters and monitor threats that might never come. And Evelyn would go to work as CEO of a company she'd helped transform. She'd make decisions, fight battles, build something that mattered. Then she'd come home to this, to the family she'd chosen and the life she'd built from the wreckage of a business arrangement. "You know what I think?" Evelyn said, leaning into Nathaniel's shoulder. "What?" "I think sometimes the best things in life are the ones you don't plan for. The messy, complicated things that happen when you're trying to survive." That's pretty philosophical for someone who used to only think about quarterly earnings. "Yeah, well, you've been a bad influence. The worst." They smiled at each other in the darkness. And somewhere in that smile was everything they'd built. All the fear and trust and choice that had brought them from strangers to this. From a contract to a marriage. From survival to actually living. The city hummed below them, full of stories and struggles and people trying to find their way. And up here, in their too expensive penthouse with their sleeping daughter and their found family, Evelyn Hart, former nobody from the Bronx, current CEO, permanent wife and mother, felt something she'd never expected to feel. Complete. Not because everything was perfect, but because she'd learned that perfection was overrated. What mattered was this, the messy, complicated, absolutely imperfect reality of choosing each other every single day. That was the real success, the kind that couldn't be measured in dollars or titles or corporate achievements. It was measured in small moments, breakfast chaos and bedtime stories and quiet conversations on balconies overlooking the city. It was measured in trust hard won and love slowly built, and families chosen rather than given. And as Evelyn sat there with Nathaniel's hand in hers and their daughter sleeping safely inside, she realized something profound. She'd come into this looking for escape from poverty. What she'd found instead was escape from loneliness. And that made all the difference. The contract that had started this was long expired, torn up and forgotten. But the promises they'd made to each other, the real ones, not written on any legal document, those were just beginning. And they had the rest of their lives to figure out what came next, together.